But he said one thing that floored me, man, to the pits of my stomach. He said, "But I remember your glove on a shiny floor."
It was 3 or 4 of them. Mario, let's back off again.
I answered all of his questions, and it was very difficult because I had like a lot closer reaction or proximity to what was on the right side of our vehicle, to these beings on the right side of the vehicle. I mean, I literally, there goes my heartbeat, but
Okay, so he was in control. So how tall was the tall one? He's 6 foot, baby. He's different. The little guys didn't bother me like he did.
when I realized what I was looking at is when I really just went. Some of those visions are almost indescribable.
Really large what? Craft.
And when you realized, was that realization, oh my God, aliens?
Yeah.
It's a pretty weak vehicle. I should have just stepped down. I'm scared.
What happened that night on November 5 was up close and absolute personal. And no matter whether they ever hear me or not, I live with that.
Whenever I was 13, I woke up in my bedroom because my light turned on. And it just flicked right on. I was the only one in the house besides my mom, who was in the bedroom down the hall. And she was asleep, positive I could hear her snoring. And then after my light turned on, my door started opening by itself, I thought. But actually then I saw a hand on the door. It had, long fingers, a very thin hand, and I thought I was having a nightmare, but then I was, pinching myself and, slapping myself, and I realized I am not asleep. And I saw how thin its arm was, and I got freaked out. I was, shocked. I was very scared. I was on my futon. I tried to stand up. It was really hard to do, but whenever I stood up, it felt like I was pushing against, a force that was trying to, hold me down. And then whenever I saw its face and its body, it was about my height, and I was about 5'9". It was skinny gray, big head, almond eyes, slit mouth, 2 little holes on the nose. And yeah, he started coming toward me, and I remember thinking, I'm going to hit him right in the head. And as soon as I started thinking that, I heard in my head, no, you won't. And it started walking toward me very slowly. And the closer it got, the more I couldn't move. I actually had a fist, and I was pulling it up in the air trying to come at him. And then I thought, I'm going to hit him, and then I'm going to elbow him. And he said, no, you're not. And it got really close, and it tapped me on the forehead very slowly. And as soon as he did, I felt electrocuted, I was vibrating like crazy. And then everything went black.
This is such a great set.
It's a trip, right?
Yeah, it is.
When you got here, I'm sorry, I'm going to shut my phone off here.
Yeah, mine's in there. I don't have it with me. I don't want it in here with me.
Boom, done. No more disturbances. It'll have to wait. If the world burns,
It'll just have to burn.
let it burn. Do you doodle a lot?
Sometimes, yeah. It's more like like Mayan figurines and stuff.
Oh, yeah.
That. It's just something I do.
Did you do that before?
Yeah, I mean before it happened.
Before 77?
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, I really didn't. Sometimes I'll just do a whole page.
Really?
Yeah, I'll just do a whole page, and it doesn't really make any sense to anybody. It doesn't even make sense to me. I just have to put these designs in, and
Just cathartic.
yeah, just following stuff.
Give me a sec, Mario. I forgot my notes. I'm going to grab those.
Oh, okay.
Find myself doodling sometimes as well.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Got to, man. Got to.
It's fun. There's a tactile sort of compulsion sometimes that you got to just...
Yeah.
I do it while I'm editing and I'm waiting for something to render. I'll just mindlessly doodle. All right. You ready to get started?
Yeah, I guess when I think about it, I don't do as well as I do if I don't think about it. So I'll just leave that over for right now.
You can leave wherever you want. You can doodle. We can spend this whole time doodling.
Wow.
Ladies and gentlemen, today I'm joined by former USAF security responder. Your position exactly was police, right?
Yeah, security police.
Security police. Folks, this is Mario Woods. Now, he's been featured on multiple podcasts. His story's been talked about. It's an incredible, incredible story about not only his encounter, one of the most incredible encounters I've ever come across at Ellsworth Air Force Base in 1977.
Correct.
And for so many reasons, Mario, you're a wealth of knowledge. You're someone with the sharpest memory and recall that I've ever spoken to. We spent some time at dinner last night.
Yeah.
And you're rattling off dates and numbers. Like I've got a notepad here just to make sure that I say the right thing, but your memory is incredible. And we're going to get into that because there's also a whole sort of rigorous discipline around someone working around these sensitive nuclear sites that you have to abide by, the Personal Reliability Program, PRP, which is, a whole thing that folks like yourself have to subject themselves to in order to be mentally stable enough to work around these things, which makes you, sir, in my opinion, one of the most credible witnesses to the UFO contact phenomenon that I've ever had the honor of speaking to. So thank you for joining me today.
Thank you. It's an absolute honor to be here. I love your set. I just can't believe the work you've done. And it all means such good things. Really, we need to know and we need to set up for these things just like what you've done. It's incredible just to see what you've done here.
Well, I appreciate it.
And having me.
Thank you. Mario, you mind pulling your chair in just a little bit?
Sure.
Just want to get you close to the microphone. You got such a lovely voice.
Well,
don't be shy.
All right.
You gotta, if all else fails, you got a disc jockey somewhere within you in a previous life, I think, or something.
I don't know.
You got a really good voice for
Thank you.
for radio. Unlike myself, I've got a face for radio, but
you do
you've
have
got
a voice. You do have a good voice.
Yeah, well, it comes naturally to you, sir. So I do want to get into, obviously, what happened alongside, is it Michael Johnson?
Michael Johnson, correct.
On that event, that fateful night in November 18th, 1977. But prior to that, I want to take you back to your childhood, and I want to start there. I want to see if there's anything to glean from, your childhood. Do you remember having vivid encounters or strange dreams or just occurrences, not only with you, but with your direct family members as a child? What's something that stands out?
1961, my mother was taking me to school at D. Queen Elementary in Port Arthur, Texas, and my sister was in the back seat. She was 4. I was 6. I think just turned 6. I think as the school year starts, like in August, I turned 6 in September. And anyway, as we approach the school on D. Queen Boulevard, which is still there today, I've been back and looked at it and just sat there in awe from what I saw that morning. And we were about the 5th car back in line, and as to the drop-off point. I'm just a young kid, not thinking anything, just doing my thing, going to 1st grade. And all of a sudden, my mother in the driver's seat, of course, she goes, "Look, Anthony, there's flying saucers." Just as we're talking, just plain as day. And I went, "Where?" I remember saying that, "Where?" And I leaned forward and I grabbed the dashboard, because back then, we didn't have seat belts like there are today. And we were in an Impala station wagon.
Oh, plenty of playing room back there.
Yeah. My sister's in the back seat and behind my mom. And she said, "Right there, look." She pointed to her left. So I leaned over toward where she was. And as I did, I could see 3 craft. And they were only maybe 50 feet, 75 max in the air. And they were directly over this church that is now gone. And it had 3 steeples over below these craft. And they were the most beautiful white silver saucers with a dome on top and a dome on bottom and the light going around the center outermost rim of it.
Like a glass dome?
No. Same color, white, silver, as the rest of the craft. The only color difference were these lights that went around them, and they were synchronous on all three craft. And I was just like, wow. I mean, I don't even have words for what we were seeing, basically. And my mom, she popped the door open, and when she did, I went behind her. And my sister, she did say in the backseat, she goes, "Mom, I'm scared." My mother said, quote, she goes, "Don't worry, honey, they're not here to hurt you."
Whoa.
Plain as day. I'll never forget that statement. My mother's been passed many years, and never forgotten that. And so when she got out, I just went across the seat right behind her and grabbed her by the hand. And she opened my sister's door, and she got out and she grabbed my mom by the hand. But we were just one of many, because everybody were exiting their vehicles. They were all in line, and I don't know exactly how many cars there were. I just do know that we were about fourth or fifth back in the line, because I could count then. And additionally, the school was one of those buildings that was a single school from elementary or kindergarten all the way up to 12th grade. So the upperclassmen, of course, their classes were upper level. But as I looked on the playground, which was blocked off, it was a whole playground directly across from DeQueen Elementary. It was still there. They had monkey bars and all that kind of stuff, but everybody met there in the morning. It was just full of kids. And every eye and every hand and every finger was pointing upward, looking at these things. And from where I was probably 100 yards away from where they were located. And the school was probably 70 yards. So that difference, I'm just trying to equate the distance, because I have gone back and looked at it and tried to stand right where our car was. I tried to really because those houses are all still there. The sidewalks are all still there. Everything is still there. So there were people pointing out the windows, because there was no AC back that time. And the windows were open, and wooden frame windows, and people were pointing out of them. And we just stood there staring at them, 45 seconds, minute and a half. And then all of a sudden, they just, boom, straight up, out of sight, clear blue sky. If there had been clouds that had punched holes in them, because they were just gone, and they were gone in under a second.
They didn't disappear.
Mm-mm.
They moved.
They went straight up.
Instantly. How fast would you?
How fast is the fastest thing we have that can leave the atmosphere today? Say our best rocket, it takes, a minute or something, 2 minutes? These were gone in seconds. They were literally out of our atmosphere in a second, if that. They were so fast, it was incredible. And there was nothing, as I know aeronautics now, there was nothing like a wind blast.
No rotor wash or
anything like that. It was just, and just gone, instantaneous, just like Lou says.
Do you remember a reaction to that?
My reaction?
Or like a general gestalt?
It was like, holy smoke, as a kid.
Do you hear people saying, "Whoa, my God," and like these type of things?
My mother did, but the strangest thing about that whole incident and all those people that saw it in school, nobody said a word the entire day about the whole thing. Any teachers, nobody said a word about it. It just went on like nothing happened. It was like it was forgotten about.
Why do you think that is?
I have no idea.
Do you think it was the technology or the being somehow, or was it just the time and the taboo? Because you hear that a lot with people that are just like, yeah, we didn't talk about it. It was just, one brought up.
It may be something that they can do over a broad area below them, people that are seeing them or something. And what that's for, I have no idea why they would do that. But it seemed, it didn't cause a calamity. Yeah. People didn't run for their cars and, let's go get, whatever and haul out. Nobody left. Everybody just went back to what they were doing. Kids went back to playing on the playground. I went up. I got back in the car. My sister did, and we pulled up, and she let me out, and she went on, home.
Have a good day.
And I went into school, and and nobody said anything about it the whole day. And I've been back to Port Arthur, and the museum. There's a museum there. It's right down there next to the port. I was working for a shipping company out of Norway then, so that's how I ended up going back there several times. And Janis Joplin, she was a renowned artist there that was from that area.
I'm familiar with Janis Joplin, yeah.
And her Volkswagen's in there, or her Porsche.
Really?
Or Carmen Gia, I think is what it is. It's inside that museum. But I went through all these archives and all these newspaper clippings and all this back to that time in 1961, and I couldn't find anything. And I have searched and searched. I've sent out search messages to people, that look for things, like Michael Johnson. I've got friends that are helping me search for him still after all these years. But there was nothing written that I've ever found.
Do you remember the month?
Well, yeah. I'm pretty certain that it was right after school started, like in August.
Okay, September,
like
August, September, around there?
Yeah, August and September.
Call to action for the audience listening, Port Arthur, 1961, August, September. Yes. Do your thing, Internet. Maybe we can collectively find something out here.
It's got to be written about, because that wasn't the only time that things were seen there, I've been told.
Usually there's always, we had Preston Dennett here not too long ago. He's a researcher as well.
Right.
Lovely man. And he sent out a challenge to his audience. And he goes, I challenge you to name me the smallest town that you can find on the map of the United States, and I will find a sighting there. And he did. He's like batting 100 on the tiniest towns. Yeah. So you'd be surprised.
Wow.
So about your mother, that comment, I mean,
they're not here to hurt you. Yeah.
In retrospect, what do you make of that?
Well, she was from Rocky Mountain, North Carolina, and her sister Esther, who's now passed, when they were little girls, they saw, they were always in the woods. I mean, they had, 5 sisters and 4 brothers in the same family. So they were always out in the fields. It's not like today's teenagers and kids, They'd seen things at night on the front porch of their house and questioned them. And she said, these weren't aircraft. They weren't airplanes, but they would just be there and just vanish, literally just take off so fast that it was indescribable. So,
when your mother was a child?
When my mother was a child.
Pre-1940, pre-1930. So we're not talking satellites here or anything. Yeah.
No, right.
This episode's sponsored by Hexclad. Out here at the Flying Saucer Diner, we believe in 3 things: hot coffee, unexplained lights over the ridge, and not losing half your dinner through the grill grates. You see, I love grilling in the summer, but once you go beyond burgers and steaks, it gets chaotic pretty fast. Fish starts falling apart, veggies disappear, and cleanups turn into a full-scale investigation. That's why I've been using Hexclad's barbecue collection. Their barbecue grill pan brings their stainless steel searing power, cast iron durability, and non-stick convenience to the grill. The perforated design lets heat and smoke come through, so veggies, seafood, fish, and kebabs still get that real smoky flavor without falling into the fire. It's dishwasher safe, easy to wipe clean, heat safe up to 900 degrees, and the Terabond ceramic non-stick coating is free from forever chemicals. So if you're planning on spending time behind the grill this summer, don't make it harder than it needs to be. Stop losing food through the grates, stop fighting cleanup, and upgrade your backyard cooking setup with Hexclad's barbecue collection. For a limited time only, and for our listeners, you can get 10% off your order with our exclusive link. Just head to hexclad.com/area52. Support our show and check them out at hexclad.com/area52. Make sure to let them know that we sent you.
And even when, I remember, you just triggered a memory there, when Sputnik was launched, when Russia launched Sputnik, we were out in our front yard and on Janelle Street in Tampa, Florida, 509 Janelle Place, never forget it. Love that house. And we saw Sputnik going over, and then I think WTVT Channel 13, they said that you could see the satellite pass overhead if it's like 9 or 10 o'clock at night or something. So my mom let us stay up. We could go outside and see it. And my dad was there, and which he was a merchant seaman. He was usually at sea, but he happened to be home this time. And as we stood out on the front porch, there's no ambient light back then. I think there was a street light at the way end of the corner, that kind of thing, and that was it. My mom said something to the effect. She goes, when she sees it, she goes, that thing, it'll take a long time for that to come back around. She goes, that's so slow compared to other things that I've seen in the sky at night.
She said that?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so there's clearly a history with your mother.
It blows. Well, my dad's, it was even different, but because he was from Banaca, Honduras.
And being at sea.
Yeah, he's been going to sea since he was freaking 12 years old or something, I mean.
One of those places where if you see anything, it's not us, right?
Yeah.
Like when you're in the middle of the ocean or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's nothing flying,
No.
hovering in the middle of the ocean. You need a battery. You need you're not getting anywhere.
Or entering the ocean or coming out of
That's
the
right.
ocean and or out of the atmosphere. Yeah. And he was never alone anytime he ever told me about those things. And, honestly, I really, during my early teenage years, I never really paid much attention to him, talking about some of the things they would see undersea and that kind of thing, under the water, while he's on a trip. Because there's one time he was gone a year, really 13 months. And he would tell me about all these things that, they'd see in the sky or, under the water, these, great points of light, he called them. He didn't say what they were. He never said there was an object or a craft of any shape or design. He said, but there are things that we don't know about, and they've always been here. And that was his wording exactly. And he died real young. But
Wow.
yeah. And then when he was growing up as a boy, he told me that him and his brothers and his cousins were playing literally in the jungle. And there's Mayan ruins everywhere. It's, just not one particular area. There's so
Honduras.
many things. Yeah. And in this part of Banaca, Honduras, there's so many. And I don't even think it's called Banaca anymore. I don't know if it's Roatan or I'm really not sure. I've never been there. So he said, but they were all playing out in the jungle. We say the woods, they say the jungle, because it really is a jungle down there. And they saw this tall, red-headed guy with long red hair, super white skin, and he wasn't walking. He was floating through the jungle. And they all hid behind these items to watch him. And he stopped and he turned around and looked back toward them. And then they freaked out and took off running. They weren't maybe 30 feet from him or something, but he made no noise. And he had on robes. He didn't have on regular clothes. He had on robes. And I just took that and threw it out. I just looked at my dad and I said, okay.
Yeah, what are you going to do with that?
Nothing. I wish I'd have paid more attention to him, really.
That's probably a reason, though, You ignored that stuff so much until you couldn't ignore it. Now looking back on it, you might kick yourself and say, oh, I should have listened. But at the same time, you don't have a history with this stuff. And that's what makes it so fascinating that you had these sightings. It's not like you were chasing UFOs when this happened to you. But UFOs seem to be chasing you.
Yeah, I don't know. I do know that when I went to the missile field, when I first got my assignment out of Lackland Air Force Base after basic training in air base ground defense and all the other things that we go through, when I saw South Dakota, I thought, where in the hell is Ellsworth Air Force Base? So, it was a rapid city, and then, I kind of put the two together and looked on the map and knew Mount Rushmore was there, so I'd have to see that. But my first week and a half in the missile field out there, when I saw those stars at night out in the middle of those prairies, because this is all buffalo running territory, and there's no ambient light, there's no towns, there's nothing. There were things that you could see moving in the sky. Now I don't know if they were satellites or what they were, but I just had a strange feeling back then before any of this ever happened. What happened on November 5. I just knew there was a correlation between nuclear rockets and these visitors. I just knew there's a connection between them. I don't know why they're looking at this stuff and these sites, but it's all Maelstrom, Minot, Ellsworth, which is was decommissioned, I think in 91 when the missile field was decommissioned, but the aircraft side of it's still active, of course. And I did mention Minot. So those are the three, ICBM sites that are still active today. And I never could understand why they did away with Ellsworth, which kind of bothered me a little bit.
Mm-hmm. That might have been
I don't know,
a precursor.
But there was more than just my sighting there that did occur.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the bad part about it is it was before a time the Air Force, or really the Army, the Navy, the Coast Guard, anybody really had a good handle on what was going on, because these things are being seen and have been seen, and since before Robert Salas's time. I mean, really, in over Los Alamos, Sandia. And I've been to both of those facilities, Oak Ridge, Y-12, K-25, Pantex. I mean, there's just,
As a security police officer?
Yeah, well, in a security inspector capacity with Department of Energy, but as a security policeman in the Air Force, yes.
You were stationed at those, or were you just...
at Air Force bases. I'm just saying overall in general.
But you've been to all these places.
Yeah.
You even told me yesterday at dinner, you were likely in Los Alamos the same time Bob Lazar was.
I have a strange feeling now. I was at the Sierra 450 area, and there was a scientist there that they kind of put me with. I wouldn't know if you call it a bodyguard or something like that, but I was assigned to him, and his last name was Bishop. And I was in a control room when an element or a test burst was being conducted. And of course, we had to set up a 2-mile entry control area. Yeah,
2 mile?
Yeah, 2 miles away. I mean, for radiation purposes and that type of thing. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, these areas are that vast. And, I thought it was really cool because besides being in that control room, similar to this right here when that happened, but being out in the 450 area, again, it's so vast. I found pieces of pottery, beautiful pieces of Indian pottery. And, and there's the caves that the Indians could dig into the rock face. I mean, with a spoon, you could dig a condominium as big as you and as vast as you wanted, and they did that. So I was picking up all this pottery, and then come to find out, because we have Geiger counters in our vehicles, and it was all radioactive. So I had to get rid. A sack of this stuff. I thought I'll bring this home, show this off, and so anyway.
Wow. So you've clearly frequented a lot of the most secretive, highly securized, sort of compartmentalized facilities in the United States. Like that was your job.
Yeah, I had a great time.
To do that. You were armed as well?
Oh, absolutely.
What did they give you?
Time. We carried different weapons for different areas. Like inside of a laboratory area, you wouldn't want to carry an M16 or an M4 or an MP5 silenced, but because there's things that if you did engage an adversary, you don't want to
alert everyone.
No, you don't want ricochets bouncing all over the place, and you don't want particular in a place like that, a shotgun would be better. If you had to engage.
Close range.
Yeah, if you had to engage, you don't really want to fire a weapon like that.
Did you ever have to engage?
No.
Thank goodness.
Yeah, thank goodness. Absolutely.
Yeah, but you were ready.
Oh,
you had the training.
Yeah. Absolutely.
How many times a year would you train?
Well, you qualify twice a year.
Twice a year?
Every 6 months. And then, of course, they do give you rounds to go out and shoot on your own, which is substantial. And the
really?
Guys that didn't want to do it, they give you theirs. So you'd be out there at a 5,000 or 6,000 round capacity.
Oh, my God.
To just melt some barrels down. Have some really good fun. I think Bob Lazar, he likes automatic weapons, I think. So.
Yeah, I think he does too. He likes anything that goes boom.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's nothing wrong with that. I don't hunt. All I do is I just target practice.
You go to the range still?
Yeah, I do a lot of tactical stuff still.
What's your favorite gun?
M4 that I built, and a wheel gun, a 586 Smith & Wesson.
Whoa.
Yeah, back from 83.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
What kind of rounds do those have?
357 Magnum.
Okay, and big rounds.
You can shoot 38 to it also,
okay.
Which is cheaper than 357 Magnums.
Right.
Yeah. And, of course, 556, I'm M4, and I have some specialty shotguns also, semis.
Whoa.
That I really like to shoot. But it's very difficult to find a range that you can go and utilize the shotgun on.
I see.
Because it tears down all the structure and everything. And indoor ranges, they just get really upset
the spread.
about it. Yeah. You can't control that. You can control it, but they don't want to listen. Not everybody's disciplined with a firearm. They just want to hear a big bang and see what they can tear up. Unfortunately.
Yeah, I've only been to a few myself in my lifetime because, obviously in Canada, we got a lot of restrictions on these things. And I don't own any guns myself, but I've had some friends down in Texas, and they were like, we got to get this Canadian, to shoot some guns. And I was like, all right. And they started me off with a 50 cal.
No way.
My soul left my body when I shot that thing.
Man.
It was stunning and
terrible.
felt incredibly terrifying. And the target they put tannerite on the is that what it's called?
Tannerite, right?
On the target without telling me. And so I'm shooting this thing and there's things exploding and I'm there's a big prank on me. But
you ever come down Southeast Georgia way, I'll take you to an indoor range and you can we'll do you right. You have your protection, our protection, and you won't be overpowered by a firearm.
Okay. All right. I'll take you up on it.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so take us into, was it the night before or was it the same, because you had a shift the night before November 18th.
No, I just came to the field that day.
You just came to the field that day. Okay.
Yeah. And we worked 12-hour shifts.
Yeah.
And our relief usually takes place two flights.
You do 6 to 6.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. 2 flights of security police officers, which would be 12 total, 6 at each. There are 6 on each shift. We do 2 flights at a time coming out on a bus or by helicopter, depending upon the weather. Buses most of the time, the Bluebird buses with tinted windows, and perform our relief. And then that shift getting off, they head out on the bus and we take over, of course. So it's, there's continuity is never broken. It's always there where it's always manned. And so then, the shift that you're working by what the roster says before you ever leave, in your debrief that you get before you leave out to the field. So once we got to the field, I was on the 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. shift, as was Michael Johnson, and he was working vacation relief for my normal partner, who went to North Carolina to get married, Steve Welshel. Good guy. Been trying to find him too, but I haven't had any luck finding him. So maybe.
You think he's happy he didn't show up that night or disappointed?
I really don't know. I didn't get a chance to see him again. After that was over, they never sent me back to November Control.
No, yeah, I heard about that as well.
Yeah, so we performed our relief, and I was young and energetic and playing table tennis and always hitting a tennis ball. We had an off-site garage set. It was on-site, but it was not connected to the main launch control facility. And I put plywood up on the walls and put tape squares in it so I could just get out there and had a center line for the nets. I just love tennis, and I just get out there in that garage for hours and just slam that tennis ball, and and it helped me in tournaments and stuff when I played a lot.
Oh yeah.
So, but I elected to do that, and so I didn't go to sleep, and we came on duty at 6 p.m. and did our normal thing and sitting around reading books and so forth. And the other 3 guys that we relieved, they went on to their room 10 or 11 o'clock that night or so. And it was kind of cool because at about 9:10, 9:15 is when I walked outside to smoke a cigarette, and then TV's on, the 3 channels in which we could view with. I helped set the antenna on the back of the building. And went outside to smoke a cigarette, and I looked to my east, and it was between 9 and 13 degrees, and I just see this large light. And I went, and it was 30, 35 degrees up off the horizon. I went, what was that?
What color was it?
Hard to describe, but it wasn't bright white, and it wasn't dull white. It was just in the middle of that somewhere. It's just a color. I'm colorblind, but it's a color, I don't know, maybe like your walls in here, something like that, but yet bright and full. There wasn't any gaps in looking at it. It wasn't, like a dark spot or a brighter spot or anything. It was just one color, and it just looked so odd. And I went, what is that? And I said, I thought for a minute, I said, it's got to be based on the size of it, because you're looking at stars in the background and overhead, and you can reach up and grab a star out of the Milky Way. It just looks that way. It's so clear. And then we were, about 8 miles north of Newell, South Dakota on Highway 79, and then Belle Fourche is to the north and to the west, I think 29 miles, and then Sturgis is south of us 30 miles. So there was nothing there. We were the brightest thing on that whole prairie area, our launch control facility, which had between 12 and 14 2-foot light cans on it, security perimeter lights. And of course, I think our fence line is either 8 or 10 feet with barbed wire turned on the outside.
First of all, I got to stop you. Your recall is insane, Mario. You're rattling off these numbers like you worked there yesterday. This is crazy. I don't know if anybody really appreciates to what extent you're getting us a detailed picture of what happened. This is remarkable.
Man. It's just there.
It's unbelievable.
It's
So sorry, I didn't want to interrupt you, but I thought I had to just remind the audience of what it is they're listening to, and I challenge them to talk to me about an event that happened 40 years ago, and see what they come up with. 50 years ago.
So I could run 20 miles, with a backpack on and an M16 back then, and smoke a pack of cigarettes. It just didn't bother me. I was just in that good a shape, and I'm sorry to say that I did smoke back then, but I did. And I'm looking to the east, and I see this daggone light, and it just looks so out of place and so odd, and the size of it was what really got my attention, not just the light in the sky. Again, it couldn't have been the moon. I think there's one scientist who looked at that, and said, no, it wasn't the moon, it wasn't Venus. I can't remember his name, Alosky or Leesky, or he's got a funny first name, but I'll think of it. And so I just lit up a cigarette and didn't think no more about it, and it just drew my curiosity. And I went, well, what the hell is that? What is that exactly? And I thought B-52 bombers. And I knew it wasn't helicopters. Now, I think I'm not sure the type of helicopters we have. They weren't Super Blackhawks. They were something else. I didn't mean to do that. But usually it was always the notification of a trip coming from the main base to your location.
It's incoming, you think?
Yeah, there was always communication if that were to happen.
You're seeing like the headlights of the craft is what you're thinking.
Yeah, they just don't send helicopters out and they just land at November Control or Kilo or Echo or Mike. They just don't do that. They always have a trip planned and they notify wherever that's going before it gets there. Because we're heavily armed and we're looking at all areas in the sky, perimeter, everything. So I get this wild-brained idea. I said, well, I couldn't tell if it was stationary or if it was coming to me. I didn't hear anything. And that's all I could see was that thing just literally hanging in the sky. So I said to myself, when I used to go to sea with my dad once in a while in the summers, ships passing, in channels or out at sea, international waters, they would sometimes flip lights at each other. If there was a communication problem, or something, one was Russian, one was Korean or Filipino, whatever they were, they would flip lights at each other. So I thought, I'll go in there and flip the lights on and off of this thing. And you're kind of taught that also in security police school for identification purposes, for aircraft identification purposes and that kind of thing, and how to communicate with them, basically.
Like Morse?
Similar, like a 3-blip type sequence or something, and they'll acknowledge back of, that they're seeing you and you're seeing them. So,
like flipping your high beams off someone on the road. Same
thing. So I went inside, and Bill Holloman, he was a staff sergeant, great guy from North Carolina. He was on the phone with his wife, and she was in Rapid City. And I said, hey, Bill, and we're good friends. I said, man, you got to come see this thing. I said, there's a light out here. And I said, I'm going to flip the several lights at it if you don't mind. And he just looked up at me and he just did that, just waved me off, He said, whatever. And the switch was literally on the wall, just like that. Mm-hmm. And I just walked up there behind him. Now, mind you, the entrance to the capsule crew where the officers are downstairs, that's what his position is directly in front of that door where his office is set up. And he dispatches us. They dispatch and tell all alarm situations to him. He relays to us. And we all have our weapons. We got our code tables and all that stuff. But anyway, getting back to this, I just walked up and just flipped the lights off and on, just blip, 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 just like that. Walked outside, about 20 feet away from the door. I've been right to that very spot again and looked to my east, and it was about 10 or 15 seconds later. The damn thing went blip, 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 flipped off, flipped on, but off, on, and back on. And I went, wow, that's cool. It's got to be B-52 bombers. But still no noise, not coming any closer, not going north, not going south. So how crazy is that? How does that it just blew my mind up. I said, what kind of aircraft is that? Is it a helicopter hovering? Still couldn't hear it. And out there, even if it was 6 or 8 miles away, 10 miles away, you'd hear a chopper. I mean, it's total silent out there. And so I shook my head and I walked back in. I did the same thing. Came back outside. I even told Bill Holm again. I said, man, I flipped the lights at it. It flipped the lights back at me. He just looked up at me like I was an absolute fool.
Yeah.
I went back out there again and it did it again. So now I got to wake up somebody. Somebody got to come see this. So my partner, Michael Johnson, and we hadn't really said that much to each other. I met him at the SATOF building, which is our assembly facility where all the security policemen going out in the field that day.
I see. That was the first time you met him.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, I was the first time I met him. And I think he was from the 66 area, which is down by the Badlands, which would be east of Rapid City. And where we were located was to the west and to the north, almost by the Wyoming border. And it was very close to the Wyoming border. And so I went and said, "Hey, Michael," I said, "come out here. I want you to check something out, man. I see some lights out here, or a light out here. I want you to see what it is, see what you think about it." And he was kind of hesitant, real nice, real light-skinned black guy. He was from Chicago, from Chicago, Illinois. And he was a single guy, lived on base, and his parents, that was his permanent home address, was in some part of Chicago. So I finally wrangled him to come outside, and I said, "All right, man, you see that right there?" And he just nodded his head, yeah. I said, "Hold on." I ran back inside, left him standing there, again, about 20 feet from the door. I flipped the lights off and on, off and on, off and on, run back out there again, and I just sit there and watched it. And it did it again. So it did it that time. And I said, "Did you see that?" And he goes, "Yeah." He goes, "I don't know, man, whatever." And he said that to me a couple of times that night, whatever. I don't know if he didn't want to just acknowledge it, or he didn't have any curiosity in him, or what. I really don't know.
Or he's freaked out by it.
He didn't have any excitement at all, though. It just didn't register with him, on his spidey skills or whatever, senses. And so I said, "Let's do it again." And he just I remember him looking down, and it was quite cold. It was like 9 to 13 degrees that night. It was ice on the ground. So I ran back in. I got my long johns on, fatigues and all that stuff on. So I ran back in and did it again. Come back outside. This would be the third time, or be the fourth time. Flip the lights off, flip the lights on, same thing. Came back out. It was about 15, 20 seconds. It went off, went on, went off, and that was it. Just stayed off. I told Michael Johnson, I said, "I guess that's the end of the show or something. I don't know." And he didn't say anything about it. I said, "What do you think that is, man?" I said, "Do you think it just went the other way or what?" He goes, he just shrugged his shoulders off. He didn't really.
Not interested.
Yeah, he was just uninterested. So we go back in, sit back down, and I just kept thinking, what was that? And the guys that were off duty, they had already gone off to, I guess, to bed or something, because they would get up early and have breakfast. But so I grabbed a book or something and started reading a book, because, it's hard to get people to play ping pong with you, or sometimes we played hearts and stuff like that when we get everybody together. But Bill Holloman's still on the phone. He'd been on the phone for 2 hours at least. I don't know. You know how that happens. And, of course, the TV went off at 12 o'clock then. That's when you get that really crazy signal at the end of the night, and it had that broadcast signal. Then it had that high-pitched signal when it ended, because we only had 3 channels. And I guess it was about a few minutes after 12:15 or so, 12:05, 12:15, all of a sudden I heard the alarm phone in the flight security controller's office where Bill Holloman was. I heard it go off, and it makes a noise, and I'm going to do this, like that. And it's really loud. You can hear it all the way out in the kitchen and the day room area.
Sure.
And there's a reason for that. And so I hear Bill Holloman, he snatches it off, because it rings until you take it off the hook, right? And I just, as I'm walking in the vestibule and I'm entering his office, I hear him say, "Sit for November 5. And none of this is classified, by the way. I want everybody to know that. None of this that I'm talking about is classified whatsoever in any part. None of it. So I hear him say, "Yes, sir, sit for November 5. And so went in there, Michael Johnson comes in, and Michael Johnson didn't know his way around. Of course, he would be the driver. He outranked me by 2 months. We were both senior airmen at the time, 23 years of age. I was. And got our weapons, got our code tables and everything that we had to have, had our ditty bags. That's your hawk bag, we call it. And this one got all your stuff in it in case you have to spend the night out there on
your
the site.
rucksack.
Yeah, it's similar to that. We call it, it's got everything in it, and like I said, in case you have to literally spend the night a few nights on that missile site until a camper alert team gets there, until maintenance can come and solve the problem if you can't get a reset on what's going on out there on alarms, because it has to be back to non-alarm status is the right word. So got our briefing and everything, and loaded up the vehicle, exited the gate, went out to the dirt road. All these are clay roads that connect these sites. There are highways, and turn left at the end of our road. Next intersection, turn left, and that's about 4.5 miles from that intersection up to Highway 79. And the strangest thing is that the road kind of goes down, and then it goes up toward the highway bed. I guess in the wintertime, when you have snow and ice and everything, so you can run off of it, and that's why they build the highways up. And they're very smart people about managing that during the wintertime. All the power lines are underground, all that kind of stuff, and that's pretty smart. And I just happened to be when I was sitting in a passenger seat, I just turned and looked over my right shoulder at about the 4 o'clock position, and we're in an F-150 Ford pickup truck. That was our response vehicle with 2 blue bubbles on top, U.S. Air Force security police on the side, and weapons rack in behind us. And, so it was a single cab Ford pickup truck.
Yeah.
And all of them they were all the same, had Western mirrors on it. And as I looked over at about the 4 o'clock position, I see this pulsating glow like this miles away at the November 5 area. I mean, that's, as the crow flies, that's where November 5 was.
Same direction where you saw the craft initially?
No.
Or the light?
Opposite, completely opposite. Yeah, we saw it east of the November control. And now November 5 is back in that direction. So it was here to the east, and then it was there November 5.
Same color?
No.
Different?
No, I didn't see a light as I saw in the sky. This was like a pulsating energy coming up off the ground or coming up through the atmosphere. And it was a clear night, so there were no clouds or anything.
So you're seeing kind of just the fall off of the light over the horizon.
Or like a pulsation, like it was pulsing.
Wow.
Like it was like this, pulsing. And it was very bright, and it was large, but I couldn't get I didn't see a confining shape of it. It was just like a light that you'd stand over there in that corner and just hit a flashlight, and it's pulsing light up.
Yeah,
It's like that. And I said, "Hey, Michael, you see that?" And of course, he's driving. He's not about to look. And he, "See what, man?" Something like that. So Highway 79, take a right. As soon as we got up on top of that roadbed and turned to the right, then that 4 o'clock now became the 1:30 position, right? And then you could really see it because we were up higher now, not much higher, but high enough where you could see that pulsation. And I said, "That right there, do you see that?" And he just goes, "Man, whatever." He says, I don't know. He just didn't want to participate or acknowledge in anything that could be other than ordinary.
And do you think that's because he's not familiar with what goes on out there? And so maybe he's thinking to himself, it's probably just normal and, I just don't know about it?
Well, it might be, but he'd been there for a while at Ellsworth and been in security police for a while at Ellsworth. And he was in a different area. So he'd just really never seen anything. He'd heard about things, but he'd never really seen anything, to the best of my knowledge, from what he told me later, a few weeks later. And as we headed down toward Newell, population 230 at the time, to a stop sign and took a right. I lost view of that pulsating light as the roadbed got lower down into town, right, and turned right on Orman Road, O-R-M-A-N, and it goes out on hard pave for about, I don't know, maybe a half a mile or less, and it drops back off on dirt again, or clay, and they're really well maintained by the state, and they're beautiful. You can go 80 mile an hour on these things, I mean, you really can. And as we made that dogleg left turn, heading to November 5, which was just down the road, maybe another mile, there sat this object in the atmosphere directly over that missile site, maybe 10 feet above the blast door. That was the size. And I'm going to say it is the Super Walmart. This thing was gargantuan. And it wasn't a craft that had a shape or a defining shape like wings and rudders or windshields or anything like that. It was a complete sphere, and it looked like it had plasma on the outside of it.
Like a roiling surface?
Mm-hmm. Like, it looked like the sun. It looked like the surface of a close-up picture of the sun. Like, this stuff was like liquid and fire and energy all together, just like molten rock or something, just moving around. And it did have some little, it had some like energy spikes on it at times, like these small little spikes would just kind of pop up. I mean, when you really looked at it, it was almost hard to look at, but I did as hard as I could. I really tried to look at it. And when we pulled up right on the cattle gate in front of the site, it was only maybe 60 to 80 feet to the front gate, which was a requirement that I had to go in. I had to go around the exterior of the site and go in the gates and go in the interior. Normal procedure.
Just for patrolling.
Yeah. And this thing was so massive that where it sat, how it sat 10 feet above that blast door, I mean, right daggone dead in the middle of that blast door. Like, it knew where it was.
When you say a blast door,
that protects the rocket.
That's the rocket comes out.
Mm-hmm.
The ICBM.
That blows back. Yeah, when the ICBM is launched, that blows back, and it's on like a railroad track that's short, and it blows it and tips it and gets it out of the way immediately. There's no pull. In fact, it's gone.
And it's dead center over the top.
Dead center, directly over top of it. And I mean, I even looked at the concrete glowing underneath it, meaning so bright, because of what was above it. And I looked at Michael, and he was just like he had like a glow around him all of a sudden. And it was just, I mean, this is very hard to perceive, when you pull up on something, this happened, it's very difficult to perceive what you're seeing. And immediately the atmosphere was just evacuated from our vehicle.
I can't breathe. I know it's because of that crowd. It's taking all the atmosphere away.
Immediately.
What do you mean?
I couldn't breathe. He couldn't either. We were just gasping for air. And I felt like there was a pressure inside the vehicle, and I was being pushed on the chest and literally lit. And I had on parka pants, full parka, my beret on, my glove. I had my gloves on. I took one glove off, and my weapon. And I just felt like I was and I was 200 and something pounds. I was just being lifted up into that back area of the cab of that truck, just being lifted up with no visible force or anything upon me. I couldn't breathe, and I was being pulled up this way, and just like in this chair, just being pulled up or something. And the only thing that I knew to do was to ask for relief. And I grabbed a black 3D-cell aluminum flashlight. I've called it a mag light, but I know they didn't do commercial mag light advertising until 79. This was in 77, so it was before it was ever named a mag light. And I rolled the window down, and I pulled myself up on the windowsill of that truck because I was so afraid I wouldn't step out of the vehicle. I got on bunny boots also. I don't know if you know what those are, but those are for super cold temperature areas. They're inflatable. And I pulled myself up on that windowsill, and I grabbed onto the bubble up there I had a gloved hand on here, and I didn't have a glove on this hand, and I just flashed my light at this incredibly huge object 3 or 4 times, just like I did back at November Control. And I don't even know why I did it. I was just asking for relief. In my mind, I was asking for relief.
Flash. Okay. I don't even know what this is. So that is and I did it for a couple of times.
And it was just as if somebody turned a faucet off. I slid back down on that seat, and I don't know what happened to my flashlight. I grabbed my gun, I grabbed my weapon, and I put it back between my legs. And I told Michael Johnson, I said, it's going to be okay now, and could breathe better, could literally breathe better. All this has taken place in about 15 seconds since I rolled up there. And then a black ball about the size of that wall right there, what do you think it is, 8 foot? It had these lines on it, like vents. They weren't like a it was like, I have to say, it was like omnidirectional. It just came out of nowhere, and it was a color black that it's not like that black or that black. It was a black that is very difficult to describe. It wasn't flat black, it wasn't gloss black, it was just black.
It's like a basketball with nozzles all around. These little sorts of gas would shoot from it, each side of it. It'd flip it, it'd push it and move it, and just go up, it'd come down, and it'd go everywhere. It was just like a big bullet or something, I don't know.
Did it make any sense what it was trying to do?
No, it was just on top of us. Right, left of me, on the other side of him, right around me.
Did you smell anything?
No.
And it came within about 8 inches of the hood of that vehicle. And it was literally right here in front of the windshield. And it shot straight up, straight down, around to the side, right here next to me. I mean, you don't know what it is. On the other side, of Michael Johnson's side, he's not speaking, not saying anything. And I mean, I'm not saying anything. And when it stayed for 8 or 10 seconds, and then it was just gone. It was the strangest feeling to have that thing all over you and not even know what it was. Don't know where it came from, never recognized or seen anything like that in my entire life. And the word drone was not even thought about then or used, especially in any of my vocabulary, anyone else's in security police that I knew of.
See a small object in front of the vehicle. There's really nothing I've ever seen.
Can you describe it?
Yes. It was maybe 2.5 to 3 feet diameter. And it was like a little ball. I don't know what else to say.
Okay, let's pause for a second. Let's pause for a second, Mario. Mario, you need to calm down. Take a deep breath.
And it left, and it seemed like there was a void that was like 45 seconds where there was just nothing but pure white light inside the vehicle, and it just seemed as if I can describe it as time slowing down. And the reason I say that, because the brightness was so intense that I could see inside the vents of that F-150. I could see down inside the vents. It was just lit up 1.5 feet down in the dashboard from this light, and dust particles were just moving past me like super, super slow, as if time was just stopped or slowed down. I have no idea how that's even done or if that's what happened, but that's the way it appeared to me. And Michael Johnson, I can't speak for, because every time I looked at him, he was just stuck to that steering wheel, and he was just bathed in this light. And mind you, now we're at a 45-degree angle. That's our response position. So actually, he was closer to the craft or to the object than I was. It was on his side of the vehicle. I was on the dark side. And I see this dust coming by me, and I see all these. I don't see shadows. I see everything is so lit that I can put myself right there, right now, and it's really uncomfortable. But everything is so lit that I've never experienced lightning, or any searchlight or anything like that in my life. And I think that light in itself had a function of what I don't know. Maybe some type of a sedative type thing. Because not one time did I feel as if, I was going to charge my weapon and start just shooting at anything or everything. I never felt that way. I wanted to run, but there was nowhere to run. You were or immerse yourself. Literally, that's the kind of fear that this invoked to me. I can't speak for anyone else. And these thoughts of what I'm describing upon pulling up there, less than probably 2.5, 3 minutes have passed, and all this has taken place. And I'm guessing there. I'm just saying that's how quickly this all unraveled.
Still a long time.
Yeah. And then this smell, it hit me like a blanket. And it just coated inside my nostrils and in my lungs and my throat. It just coated me like ammonia and sulfur. It takes your complete attention for everything else. I've never smelled anything quite like it again. Some similar in a cooler with some shrimp going bad that was opened.
It was pungent.
Yeah.
Was it like chemical?
I can only say ammonia because I worked around all these laboratories and different areas, like even where I work now, in Georgia Pacific. It's you smell these smells and
it sting your nose.
Yeah, that did. It just coated. It just felt like I was coated. I couldn't get it out of me, at all. And as soon as that was gone, or it wasn't really gone. It was still there. It just permeated inside of that truck. I knew the only thing protecting me on my right side was that thin piece of glass in that window. And I don't even know where that thought came from, but that's what I thought. And then I started to fear. And as soon as I started to fear is when I heard the first word, do not fear, do not fear. Not verbally, inside of me. Like, I don't just mean in my head, I mean through me, through every cell in my body radiated the sound at the exact same time.
And it was in English, it was 3 words.
Do not fear, said in that way. Do not fear.
If you had to describe the voice, male or indescribable?
Indescribable. It's not like anything we've ever heard. The only thing that I can associate with it is when a father or a sibling would talk to a baby in a mother's womb. That's the only thing that I can associate with how it would feel, because a baby hears those things. He hears, or she hears those sounds in a mother's womb when the father is talking to him. Like all of us dads do. Like all of us dads do. We've all done that, and it always reminded me of that. And I heard that twice. Do not fear. Do not fear. And I just turned and I looked to my right because I felt a presence, and about 20 foot away from me were 4 beings, 3 small and 1 tall. And the one on the right, no, the one on the left, it would be, I was just looking from their point of view. The one on the right, they had on these real skin-tight little fitting, they're not coveralls, they're
jumpsuits.
I don't know what. Yeah, I guess but they're real skin tight. And he had a waistband of some type, and in that band was a stick about that long, and it had a yellow tip on it about that big. Besides what I was looking at, that's really what I paid attention to, and honestly, it wasn't what I was looking at on 4 alien beings and their smells and their talking within me. It was when I realized what I was looking at is when in here just kind of broke down for a second.
There was 3 or 4 of them.
Can you describe them from the shadows?
Yes. 2 of them walked up to me.
Okay. Mario, let's back off again.
I knew there was no escape, and there was no sense in saying anything or doing anything. I don't know what Michael Johnson was doing at that particular time. The next thing I know, I heard "Do Not Fear" one more time in succession, and lights out. Just that fast, just lights out.
So how tall was the tall one?
6 foot, maybe. He's different.
Can you describe him?
Yes. He had a long head. He had a very long head. And he looked at me, he just looked right through me. The little guys didn't bother me like he did. He
So-
would look through me or something.
He looked through you?
Yes.
Okay. And the small ones didn't bother you?
They walked right up to me. And they had these little, and their eyes, I didn't even fear them. I didn't fear them.
Okay.
They told me not to. And I didn't fear them.
And as soon as I couldn't see anymore, or I was out asleep or whatever I was, I just took a deep breath and I just popped awake, and I'm in total blackness. No lights, no missile sight, completely away from where we were. Didn't know that at the time. I just thought they'd turn all the lights off on November 5 because that's where we were dispatched to because of this alarm. And I said, "Hey, Michael," I said, what happened? What's going on? He is stuck to this steering wheel, just glued to it. And he wouldn't talk to me. He wouldn't answer me.
November 1, to control. I said, I got a problem with Sergeant Johnson. I said, I can't get him to speak to me or acknowledge me. I said, I don't know where the hell we are.
And I found that so odd that a grown man like you sitting there and me hollering at him that whatever stupor he's in, he's going to eventually hear me. Pushed his face with my index finger. I put my finger in his ear about that far, thinking that would shock him or something. But it had no effect. And I turned to my right and I looked, and I was still thinking about what I had just seen, thinking maybe this is all a dream. This didn't really happen. And there's a white wall, and it goes up at about a 45-degree angle. I know I use a lot of degrees, but I live that way. And it was white. And it went up about 50 feet. It wasn't an angle. It was at an angle. So I said, "Where are we?" I said, "What happened? Where is November 5? And I'm saying this to Michael Johnson, and nothing from him. I reached down and pulled a lever on the door handle, and I stepped out in mud. And mind you, it was 9 to 13 degrees, and there was ice on the ground, and where we were, it wasn't. And I didn't know where we were. I'd never been there before. So I'm in question with him. I'm trying to pull him and yank him and talk to him, and didn't even think about the radio or nothing. And we had not made any kind of security check since we arrived on November 5, which was really unusual because that alarm dictated that we made a security check every 5 minutes during the process of that, what's called striking a site. And I thought, I'm in trouble now. That's all I could think of with everything else. I'm in trouble now. A few seconds passed, and all of a sudden the radio just cracked to life, and it said WSC to November 1, BU copy. And I looked at Michael, and I thought, well, here's a friendly voice. There was a wing security control back at Ellsworth. Now, these launch control facilities they're very far away from the main base of Ellsworth. You live at these facilities, launch control facilities. There's 15 of them at Ellsworth, or there were, with a total of 150 missiles. Each launch control facility has 10 Minuteman missiles assigned to it, and you go and you take care of all 10 of those that are in your area, or you serve as backup to any other area that may need you. So I continued to try to wake him up, and I said, Airman Woods, WSC. I said, it's November 1. He said, he goes, are you hurt? And I said, no, sir. He goes, what's your status? And I said, I'm not sure. And he said again, he goes, do you need medical attention or something like that? And I said, I don't, but I said, I can't get my partner, Michael Johnson, to talk to me. I said, he's just frozen to the steering wheel and won't move. And there was a long pause. He didn't really know he didn't know what to say about that. I mean, these things are all new. You just got to go with it as it comes at you. You can't, there's really not a procedure that I knew of that you had guidelines to follow, unlike striking a site or something like that, which we had strict guidelines. And that was my biggest worry, is I never stepped a foot on that site. And now, and I was responsible for that. So I was going to be in trouble. That's all I could think about, was I was going to be in trouble. And how was I going to explain this?
You and Michael.
Yeah. How's I going to explain this? And I couldn't get him to say a word. I didn't know what he thought or what he heard or what he didn't hear. I'm still shaken from what I've heard and what I saw and what I smelled. That's never left me.
I want to pause here and just go back a little bit to the encounter. When you saw, clearly this is hard for you to talk about.
Yeah.
I see that.
It gets me.
Yeah.
I try not to let it bother me, but it just comes upon me. And
how can you not?
I don't know.
And, I mean, this is otherworldly. I mean, there's no other way to put it. And, any way that you feel about it, there's no protocol for how you're supposed to feel about these things. So, but it is clear to me that you have an emotional reaction to reliving this. When you saw Michael Johnson's face as he was being bathed in this light in the car, what was his expression?
Wide eyes, breathing normal, just wide eyes. That's really all I could tell.
Was his mouth open? Was he just...
No.
I
don't remember his mouth was open. It was a little bit later, but it wasn't then.
Do you feel like he was just in shock?
He was just like stuck in time or something. I don't know.
Frozen.
Yeah, he was just frozen. He was just literally locked up. And, and I got to say, I didn't pay attention to his arms because I really couldn't see him at that time, and his hands. But pulling his jacket back when I got him off the steering wheel, he was so locked up. Literally, how long had he been stuck on that steering wheel like that? How do you grab onto something and not let go for however long it was, and not be aware of it, for one, and for two, it was almost as if we were going to break a finger getting his hands off that blue plastic F-150 steering wheel, literally, and I had help doing that.
Okay, so take me back then. You're being radioed in. First of all, the radio calling in, did you ever wonder how long have they been trying to reach us?
Mm-hmm.
Did you ever get an answer to that?
No.
So
no, sir.
It could have been the first time. Like you could have just maybe appeared and they were like, oh, what are you guys doing out there? Like there's no way that you can know that. Okay. And so you get radioed in, they send help. Well, first you got to find out where you are.
Mm-hmm. When I stepped out and found out I was standing in mud, I just had great questions that I couldn't even begin to answer with everything else that had just gone on. And I kept trying to talk to him, and then Wing Security Control said, we want you to make 1-minute security checks because we are going to triangulate your position. He didn't say we were doing it. He said, we are going to triangulate your position. And I'd never been a part of that, or had I not done it either, but we learned something similar to that in tech school, security police tech school, just never used it, never thought it would, but it was there in case it had to be used. So he was doing that based on his 1-minute security checks. As I just call in and, say Senior Airman Woods, Wing Security Control, security check, and he'd just 10-4 that, and he said, they're coming, we're trying, and that's the response I got back and forth from him. And of course, he kept asking me about Michael Johnson, can you get him on the radio? I said, I can't get him off the steering wheel. I can't get him to speak. I can't get him to do anything. And there was a great pause in that. I don't know, because all the Wing Security Control personnel were listening to that. All the security police personnel were listening to that. All of them. Through all three facilities, through all three sites. I mean, through all three areas, the 66, 67, 68. So everybody was aware of it. What I was not aware of is where I was and how we got there. And it started getting bright. Now, we arrived November 5 before 1 a.m., preferably right around 12:30, quarter to 1, somewhere in there when all this took place. And when I looked at my little old military Timex $20 watch back then, it was after 6 a.m. So
Almost 6 hours.
5 hours at least had passed. 5 hours. No recollection how we got there.
When did you look at your watch? At that point?
When the sun came up.
So you saw the sun and you were confused?
Well, it doesn't come. It just started getting light in the east, and I went, "What the heck?" Because I had no idea this much time had passed. It just seemed like a second, like a few minutes from where we were to where we are now.
Did that hit you at all when you saw the time?
Yeah, I was like, "Oh my God, now I'm really in trouble," because we didn't go on that site. I just knew I was going to answer to a lot of stuff, right then and there. And I still couldn't get my partner, my team leader, to answer or to be cognitive of anything that was going on at all. He was just a blank. And it was a little after 6 when I saw the first set of headlights coming over a hill. And we were about 4.5 miles off the road of Highway 79. Behind Newell Lake Reservoir Dam. But I do want to know and back up a little bit to where when I got out of the vehicle and looked this way and that way, which ended up being north and south, the road that we were on, this was a 2-wheel drive vehicle. All of our Fords out there, they were all 2-wheel drive vehicles, rear-wheel drive. And where we were sitting on this little road behind this dam, there was just wheels wide enough to be sitting upon. There was not a place to go in there and turn around and to come back in the direction in which we were facing. It was the only way we could be facing to get out of there. If not, we couldn't have gotten our vehicle out of there. If it had been sitting east and west, you couldn't have moved it. And if Michael Johnson been conscious and opened up his door and it had been total darkness and took 2 steps, he'd have gone down about a 20 or 30 foot drop off, not straight, but just a slanted drop off into another holding pond for that dam overflow. Because the Weir Dam was north of us at the far end of Newell Lake Reservoir Dam.
But there were tracks coming in.
There were no tracks.
There were no tracks coming in.
No tracks anywhere.
So fresh snow, ice.
Yeah, it was ice and snow, and there was no tracks.
And there was no tracks?
No tracks. None. Where we were was just a round place that was de-thawed and wet and clay.
And there was mud around your truck?
Mud, yeah. And there was no tracks coming in for us when Sergeant Garza, he was a buck sergeant, and him and his team member, they were a backup alert team from another facility, I think Oscar Flight. They sent them over, and of course we had our backup alert team. Now I think they might have gone to November 5, but I really don't know. But a total of 6 security policemen in 3 vehicles in tandem arrived at the same time, 20, 30 feet apart. Sergeant Garza was the closest. And one thing I don't remember is if our vehicle was running or it was off. I don't remember that.
Did they comment on the fact that there was no tracks?
Not at that time, no, at all. Sergeant Garza didn't either. But he said, and I walked around. I stepped out and I walked around the front of the vehicle and I walked toward him. He was about 20 feet away from me. And I said, Sergeant Garza, I said, what's going on, man? He goes, Mario? He goes, I don't know, but I can't talk to you about that. He said, I'm just here to escort you to November Control.
I looked around and I said, what the hell are we doing here, man? And as I noticed, it wasn't dark anymore, it was getting light. And I said, what fucking time is it, man? And it was like 6:15 in the morning.
And I said, okay, I understand. And I told him, I said, I need help with Michael Johnson. He didn't know Michael Johnson either because I said he wasn't on our normal flight. And he said, what do you mean? I said, I can't get him to talk. I can't get him to move. I can't get him to acknowledge anything. I said, I don't know what's wrong with him. So he walked over to the vehicle, not saying anything. I opened up the driver's side door, and there's Michael sitting there like this, seat belted in. We only had lap belts, seat belted in. And he's just stuck on the steering wheel.
Staring straight ahead.
Staring straight ahead. I don't know if he was blinking or not. I never remember him blinking at all. I put my hand in his face, like I said. I did everything I could possibly do, screamed at him, yelled at him. Finger in the air, everything. No response at all. Just a locked up human being. Anyway, finally we unbelted him, and we both, I got on the passenger side, came across the seat because we had to get him in the passenger seat, and I started working on his right hand, undoing his thumb and his index finger and getting his hand opened up so I could get it off the steering wheel. Garza did the same thing on the left side, and that's how we got his hand off of there.
When you were taking his hand off, did his fingers stay in position as you were opening them, or were they trying to
No, they were trying to continue.
They were trying to keep holding.
It was like he was in a great muscle cramp in both arms.
Yeah.
I mean, it was like he's in a great muscle cramp, and I don't have words for it. And once we got him off the steering wheel and placed his hands down on his lap like that, I just grabbed him on the inside of the leg and up by the back of the collar, and I just drug him across the seat, and I just put the seatbelt back on him. And I kept talking to him the whole time, and nothing. He just sat there just like this, looking straight ahead, and just sitting there. Just sat there the entire time, never said a word. His weapon was there, all of his stuff, his ditty bag was where it was supposed to be. Everything was where it was supposed to be and had been. I went around and got into the driver's seat, cranked the truck up. I did do that. I remember that. And Garza went back to his vehicle.
So the truck was off?
The truck was off. Yeah, at that time it was off.
Yeah.
So I cranked it up, turned on the lights. Everything was fine. Started to move. I slipped a little bit, as I said, it was on a two-wheel drive, and we were crunching through the snow and ice. It was about a foot and a half deep. And got in behind Garza. They turned around and they went on. As we exited out on the Highway 79, the other two backup alert teams, they went their way, but Garza stayed with us all the way to November Control. Got to the gate at November Control. They opened the gate when they saw us coming. Of course, there was radio communication going to the gate. They had automatic gate, so that was opened, and I pulled in right in front of the flight security controller's office. It was just like an outward vestibule. And when there was, there were the off-duty security policemen there. There was Bill Holloman was there. There were two officers there that had been underground that morning. They waited. Their relief normally takes place and they leave every other day, I think is how that works. And I can't quite recall their schedule, but usually at alternate command center, they stayed there overnight. They didn't do that same schedule on other sites. So they were relieved with their new guys going downstairs, and they come up. So I had Bill Holloman, the on-duty security policemen that were there, and myself and Michael Johnson would make up the off-duty shift. But we have facility manager, a site cook, and of course my flight chief, Master Sergeant Joel Gray, and Tech Sergeant Robert Hawkins. They were both there awaiting our arrival. And when they pulled up, they just came up to the side of the vehicle, and as I stepped out, Sergeant Gray said, he goes, "What's going on with you? What's going on with you?" or something like that. Because he was an Alabama guy, and we had a really good rapport and relationship. "What's going on with you, boy?" or something like that. And I said, I don't know, Sergeant Gray. I said, "I don't know how to answer you, sir." He said, "What's wrong with him?" I said, "I don't know." And they literally opened the door and got him out. I said, "He has to have help." I said, "He's not responding to anything. I've been trying to talk to him and get his attention in any way, or get him to talk, or to even acknowledge that there's somebody else in the room with him, but he won't even do that." So literally the flight security, the facility manager, and I think one of the officers of the two got him. Yeah, he was a lieutenant. He got him, and they put him under, then they got him under the shoulders, and they took him to the back room to the facility manager's bedroom, and they sat him down. I guess they're going to try to get some fluids in him or something, but we were immediately separated. And that was the strangest thing, because all I did was ask about him. So they took me I went in the day room, we turned in our weapons, as that's normal procedure. It was a program said we were relieved of our weapons, but that's never been the case. They didn't take anything. They never took our weapons, period. Turned in all of our stuff, code tables and all that stuff had to be burned, and that was done. But
were you tired at this point?
I don't really recall how I was. I don't think so. I think I was so full of
Adrenaline?
Yeah. And mind you, I'd been up the day before since about 4 o'clock.
Yeah.
And when I was brought to the SATAF building to go do my normal 3-day shift, and then I stayed up all day, and then this happened that night, and so I'd been up all that time straight.
So maybe even a little bit delirious at this point because you're like trying to figure out what happened. You've got missing time. You might be tired, but also you have this adrenaline pumping through your system. Yes. Very strange, probably a very strange feeling.
It really honestly is, yes. And
confusion.
I just knew that I had to be very selectful in every single emotion and word that I stated that day to anybody I spoke with, because
you did not want them mistaking what happened for something else.
Had I said what I saw out that right side window approaching me, PRP would have been gone, my job would have been gone, I'd have probably been put in a storeroom or something, but my whole career would have been down the tubes just that fast.
And just to pause here, PRP, the Personal Reliability Program.
Yes.
Can you explain a little bit about what that is?
Oh, yeah. Well, it's a security measure taken from personnel that work in highly sensitive areas around nuclear equipment or sensitive nuclear materials or anything like that, deemed that a catastrophe or a wrong move or a person that was unscrupulous could take something and do something with it to hurt others and many others, or contaminate something, or could do anything to harm many, many people. So the PRP program is placed there, in essence, as a guideline to keep people on the straight and narrow.
So you're drug tested regularly?
Yeah, drug tested.
What do they do? A swab, pee test, blood test,
hair test, all the above, yes.
And then let's say you have a headache one day and you want to grab a couple aspirin.
Well, that's okay. An aspirin's okay.
Aspirin's okay.
But if you take any kind of drug, that should be prescribed and is not,
sure,
it shows up and boom, you're done. I mean, you're taken in, you're examined, and you're cross-referenced and investigated. And
the idea of you saying like, "Oh, I'm feeling depressed" or something, you can't say any of that.
Negative.
That's gone.
That's gone.
So you're under pretty strict
guidelines,
almost surveillance.
Oh yeah.
And so you're choosing your words wisely because you know that if you say the wrong thing here, there goes your job.
Everything.
Your clearances, everything.
Right. Everything. And I was new. I was just a senior airman, and I was newly married, and I'm just trying to do a job. Yeah, that's what I was there for, and I really enjoyed it up to that point. I just didn't understand what had happened.
Are you thinking to yourself, Michael is going to lose his job?
I didn't know. I honestly didn't know because I didn't know what he had seen, what he heard, or what he would remember.
But just like his state, like the state that he's in, I would have been like, yeah, maybe this guy's done.
I didn't know if he'd ever recover from it the way that I saw him. I've never seen another human being act that way.
So now you go into like a debriefing situation?
Yeah, I'm just in a day room, in a normal day room where we sit and watch TV. They had turned the TV off. And everybody that was even on duty was standing around the outer perimeter, and they had me sitting in a chair, a lean back chair, and in the day room, and Master Sergeant Gray was kind of leading the investigation or the interrogation and getting ideas from others. And so there was one officer in there. The other one was back with Michael Johnson and the facility manager in that room. And I was just asked everything. What happened? What did you see? What did you do? You didn't go on the site. What happened? They were, and I told them, I said, there was an object. I said, gargantuan thing. I said, I don't know what happened. Well, how did you get to where you were? I mean, just all types of cross-referencing questions like that. I said, I don't know how we got there. Well, the vehicle didn't drive itself there. I mean, there was rebuttal in a lot of things that I even said, and it just makes you feel smaller and smaller. Well, how come you didn't strike that site? And I couldn't really answer that other than I don't know why, and you have to be very selectful in that appropriate answer.
So you mentioned the object. You didn't mention the beings, the smell,
correct,
any of that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and I told him of the round ball object too that came down in front of the vehicle, about the evacuation of the atmosphere inside the truck, the pressure on the chest for both of us, and how Michael Johnson acted and what he did or didn't do. Everything that I've told you, with the exception of what I saw out the right side window, I told them as best I could. And of course, that wasn't the end of it. So after about 2.5 hours of that, then Sergeant Gray, he was in the flight security controller's office while I was still out there. I told him, I said, I have to go to the restroom. I needed some silence to myself, and not that I had to do anything or whatever. I went into that restroom, and there were 2 stalls, and I just went into the far stall, and I closed the door, and I just sat there. And I was in my fatigues. I felt dingy. I felt dirty or grimy or something is a better word for it. And I remember putting my head in my hands and on my knees, and I just sat there kind of just rubbing my head, and all of a sudden I get this super high-pitched whining in my ears, and my eyes are closed, and it's like a scream inside my head, this super high pitch, and I open my eyes, and the colors around me changed, like pea green, like honestly, like a pea green color, just everywhere. That's what I was seeing out of my eyes. Everything just looked that way, and it was a bright, sunny day. And I don't know if perhaps being subjected to bright light or something like that was doing that, because I was trying to find an answer in my mind. It was just rolling over. But this noise got so loud, I remember placing my hands on the side of my ears, and I put my head down. And when I closed my eyes, I was leaving my body. And I had a clear path through me out my feet. I just knew there was a way that I could leave my body. And I felt like anytime I closed my eyes, I'd go further down each time. And I get here, I got down to here, if there's such a measurement, and it freaked me out so bad, I popped my eyes back open, and when I did, I see these 4 little furry feet going across the tile floor in front of the door in the stall I'm in. It was a German Shepherd drug dog, and behind him was a pair of super shiny Cochrane law enforcement boots that we always wore. And the guy says, "You okay in there, Mario?" And I said, "Yeah, man." I said, "I'm all right. I'm fine." I said, "I'm glad you're here." I said, "My ditty bag's out there in the day room." And he said, "Oh, I've already checked all that." He said, "You guys are good." He said, I've done it all." He said, "I just came to check on you." So evidently he knew me, but I don't know who he was. I just don't know who he was. It's just, he knew me though. So I opened the door, and he's still there, and you're not supposed to pet their dogs ever. And I didn't. I just said, what a pretty boy he was. I remember looking at him, he had my attention. And
did you feel flushed at all?
Oh yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. And the colors had not come completely back yet. I still had that vision in my mind or in my eyesight of this pea green color. And it was calming down, but all I wanted to do, I turned that sink water on, and that ice cold water from that huge well underground. That South Dakota water is like here. It's super cold, and super nice. And I just drenched myself. And I had my fatigues on, had long johns on, and T-shirt, long john top, long john pants, and my fatigue pants. I just soaked myself. And we weren't wearing cami fatigues, and we were in those grays back at that time. And I was putting on my hair and my face, and got me a paper towel, and was wiping myself down, and walked back out in the day room. And I remember Master Sergeant Gray saying, "What, did you take a bath in there?" I said, "Yes, sir." I said, "If I could, I would do that." I said, I just I needed to do that. He didn't say nothing. He said, well, get your bag. He said, we've got to go back to base. He said, wing commander and the base commander or deputy base commander wants to meet with you. So that's where we were heading, about 55 minutes back to Ellsworth Air Force Base.
I want to put a little pause here.
Mm-hmm.
I find it very interesting, the out-of-body thing, and it reminds me because one of the best ways, have you ever left your body since then?
Yes.
Okay. One of the best ways that I've encountered through people I've talked to and interviewed and the books I've read about leaving your body is fatigue. Fatigue is like almost a guaranteed way. Like if you skip a night's sleep and you try to stay up. There was a guy, Marco, who was in our group at the Gateway process when I did the Monroe thing, and he was a firefighter, and they would often, spend 48 hours up and they'd sleep at the firehouse. And one night he was telling me too, is like as soon as his head hit the bed, he didn't have time to fall asleep. Like he was rising up through his body and going through the ceiling and whatnot.
Yeah.
But that seems to be, a catalyst for out-of-body events. So you might have been experiencing that on top of this other thing, or maybe it was facilitated by your experience. I don't know, but I think it's interesting that you had that happen there. Like, how bizarre does this day get?
Absolutely. I try to make sense of it and not only but what, but why, and what's the lesson. And I can't answer any of it. I really can't. I do every day because there's not a day goes by where some part of this doesn't infiltrate back to me in some way. I can see something that pushes that memory forward, or I can smell something that ignites other thoughts. It's really it's consuming, and it never goes away, and I don't think it ever will until the day I'm no more. But
yeah, it's a strong, a lot of people in your position, that I've spoken to, and I asked them, like, what's the one thing that you would ask them, whatever did this? And the answer is always, why me?
Yeah.
It's an invasive personal sort of thing that you went through. And for something that really important to have happened, there has to be a reason, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So you got 55-mile drive
back to Ellsworth.
Yeah.
And I even asked Sergeant Gray before we left, I said, well, what about Michael Johnson? Don't worry about him. He'll be fine. Sergeant Hawkins is going to bring him back. I said, okay, no problem. So I got my stuff and got in his vehicle. On the way back, we talked about the whole thing. From start to finish and what I saw. I guess he was looking for something else other than what I had told him, and he even asked me, he says, there's something else that you want to tell me that you haven't told everybody. And again, I would not say what I saw out that right window. I didn't.
He was asking you.
Yeah, he was asking me, is there anything else I wanted to say? What I saw that I didn't say in front of everybody back at the launch control facility. So I said, no. I said, that's what I remember. That's what I know. And I just continued onward, and, we talked small talk, and I tried not to just discuss that the whole way back. I only answered questions that he asked me, and I'd look and say, oh, that's a pretty cow over there along the road, along the highway, or, this is a really beautiful country up here. I just tried to get my mind and his questioning off of me for a little bit. I guess that was kind of like the refreshing part of taking a bath in the sink, was getting some of that off of me. But I could tell he was concerned, and he did say something about when his dad was young and he were fishing or something, that they saw something, but that's all he said. He didn't go into it anymore. And I just tried to tell him, I don't think he could comprehend the size of this thing. I really don't. Because I told him, I said, in my opinion, it'd be at least at least the size of the SATAF building, which was our security police main ops building back on base, and which was an old B-52 hangar converted into office area and training area for us.
When people say the size of a football field, they literally mean.
Yeah, it really is the size of a football field. And I think to our visitors, size has no meaning whatsoever. They do whatever they need, I guess. I don't know. But so 55 minutes back, went into the Box Elder Gate, which is the back gate at Ellsworth, went to the SATAF building. He brought me up to the side door. I got my stuff, my ditty bag, and I followed him in, went in front of for
me, it was like 1 or 2 o'clock. My wife had not been notified. They wouldn't let me talk to her. And when I was talking,
Colonel Ralph Spraker's office door, and of course he had me sit on a bench outside the door, and he was a security police commander, and he's been a pretty good guy up to that time when I'd had interaction with Colonel Spraker, but he knew me by name, and they try to know everybody, and also that there are about 800 security policemen at Ellsworth Air Force Base, whether they work aircraft or they work missiles. So they said that 1 in 4 people that you'd meet walking down the sidewalk or in the BX or commissary was a security policeman, which was true, really was. So when he came back out, he was in about 15 or 20 minutes with the commander. When he came back out, he said, all right, he's ready to see you now. He said, report in. So that meant, a formal report in, meaning I got up and Master Sergeant Gray went back into the room, went over to the right side of the room, and Colonel Spraker's desk was like straight ahead, maybe 20, 25 feet. It's a rather large size office. So I banged on the door, like that. And he said, enter, and I walked up to his desk within 3 feet of it. And I said, Senior Airman was reporting as ordered, sir, instead of detention until he told me I could go at ease, in which I did. And not really looking, but counting people as I went in, there was a total of 5 people in there, and there were 3 standing, 1 standing and 2 sitting over to my left. 1 young guy, a medium-aged guy, maybe, or middle-aged guy, maybe in his 30s or so. Then there was a tall, older man, and he had on a gray tweed suit and a hat, and he had the hat under his arm. So I thought maybe he was ex-military or something, because you don't wear your lid, your cover inside any building at any time. And then I had the deputy base commander was there besides Colonel Spraker. Colonel Spraker was behind his desk, and the deputy base commander was sitting over to his right. And he said, well, Senior Airman Woods, seemed like you've had an interesting evening. That's what he said, interesting evening. And I just looked at him and I said, yes, sir. That's all I knew to say. He goes, you want to tell us about it? And I said, yes, sir. And I looked to my left, and I remember him saying something like, don't worry about them, because I thought maybe he'd introduce me to them or something. This is so-and-so, so-and-so, but I didn't rank that high, so they didn't have to tell me anything. So I went through the whole thing of telling them about flashing the light at this thing, out to the east side of the site and where it was located in the sky and what I did and who I told, because they had to be brought in and talked to as well. It wasn't just me.
You had to corroborate?
Yeah, everybody that was involved had to be talked to. And told him about Michael Johnson, how he acted. And again, I asked him, I said, how is Michael Johnson? And I kept telling him, don't worry about Michael Johnson. He'll be just fine. This is just about you and what we're talking about in this room right now. And I said, yes, sir. And Master Sergeant Gray, he was sitting over to my right, and he was standing. He wasn't sitting either. They went through everything. I guess Sergeant Gray had said something or told him a little bit about what happened. I really don't know, because he started, Colonel Spraker started saying some things like, well, Tell me about the size of this craft. Tell me about this. Tell me about, this item that came down over the hood and around your vehicle. What did you smell? I told him I smelled. And I explained all that to him. Nobody ever questioned or said a word about any of that. And this went on with questions and answers by me for about 2.5 hours.
Wow.
So I'd been up all that time and got into the base. I guess it was about 10:30 that morning. I was in his office still at 12:30 or so. And I knew he was pushing for me to say something about seeing. He kept asking me, is there anything you're not telling me? Is there anything you're not telling me? And I said, no, sir. And I wouldn't say what I saw at all out the side of that window.
How do you think they knew?
I have no idea. I hadn't said anything unless Michael Johnson had said something, but I don't know if he did. I don't think he did. I really don't know. But I did get answers a few weeks later. Not by them, but by Michael Johnson, and I'll go into that.
Well, and this man in the gray tweed suit, you never find out who he is.
Mm-mm.
And I know that...
a real skinny guy, too. I thought...
Tall?
He's tall and skinny.
Gaunt,
Yeah, emaciated looking. I was like, what is this guy? He needs to eat something. I mean, really, I thought that.
He was old. Older?
50s, 60s, somewhere like that. And then the men sitting next to him was Captain Jack Reed, and he was the OSI commander or officer in charge at Ellsworth at that time. And sitting next to him was a young officer, OSI, named Rick Doty.
Richard Doty, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I didn't know him from Adam's House Cat.
Mm-hmm.
And
this is early in
77.
Early in his career.
Yeah, I'd never known him, or I didn't even think anything about him.
But he was OSI.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, he was.
Probably just on some training too.
That's what he's later told me. He was there to study SAC communications. They had something going on with some communication activities that they didn't understand or something. That's what he told me. It's when you mention his name in this topic, and for those who are not familiar with Richard Doty, he's got a sordid history with misinformation, and it's really hard to take what he says at face value. But, if it were possible to take what he says at face value, he's got to have some interesting stories. Oh, my God.
If we were able to believe anything he said,
yes.
If he's in a room like that, how many other rooms like that was he in?
Exactly. Yeah.
So, okay. But these this tall gentleman as well in the tweed suit, was it Bob Jacobs who had mentioned?
Mm-mm.
No, who had mentioned the tweed suits? There was another instance of gentleman in tweed suits. I think it was Bob Jacobs when he got debriefed.
Oh, okay. All right. Going back to that. Yeah.
Yeah. When they were telling him you didn't see anything or whatever.
Didn't see anything. Don't ever talk about it again.
Yeah. There was gentlemen in tweed suits again.
And it was a light gray. It was an ugly suit, even for 1977, I thought.
Not military.
Yeah. No, not military.
And for a civilian to be in that room.
Yeah.
I mean, what the heck? You don't get access to that type of thing as a civilian.
No.
Especially, the sensitive nature of the area, let alone a sighting with some unidentified object. You're sitting on a base that has nukes. No civilian is just going to walk into a room with a colonel and listen in on some type of debrief. Like, what is your position, sir? Where are you from?
Absolutely.
OSI has to be there.
Yes. But
this other gentleman dressed as in civilian garb is unusual.
Very unusual. And that's the way I felt something from him. I don't know what it was, but I don't know. I knew where Colonel Spraker stood, and I knew where the deputy base commander was standing. I know how they were feeling, and they had to go look at radar. They had to go look at a whole lot of things. The tower would have picked that thing up. You know? I never got anything. I never got any information concerning that. They just shut me down as quickly as possible. And our debriefing went on, like I said, 2.5 or so hours.
There's a lot of things discussed there.
Yeah, and after what I'd already been through back at November Control, with Master Sergeant Gray, because I mean, I don't know if any of that one officer that was in the room, in the day room with us, and anybody else, maybe they made phone calls and maybe they had information that we talked about there and not in the commander's office, because it just seemed as if they had something pre-set up before I got there. How long did these people known about this before I even arrived? How long had they been in that room, and what had they discussed? That was a question that I brought to Rick Doty when I finally made communication with him in 2019, 2021. Maybe.
Did he give you any information that you deemed valuable?
He just simply said he knew of it and knew that there were two of us, and that he was sent to medical to pick up our medical records, because I was taken in the commander's staff car by a driver over when our debriefing stopped in the commander's office. I was asked to go to the flight surgeon's office to be examined. So I did as I was told, and they all stayed behind. But when that driver took me over to the hospital, to the flight surgeon's office, there were two flight surgeons in there. And when I got there, Rick Doty and that Jack Reed, they were already there. And this was the kind of examination room that had those, and it's important that I tell you this, they had those gray dividers of the 50s, 60s vintage that separated like examination rooms, and then they had like that wavy glass at the top of them. So they were on the outside of that looking toward where I was, and it was a nurse, and there were two of these flight surgeons when I went in there. And the taller one said to me, he said, "Senior Woods," he said, "you had an interesting evening, I understand."
Again.
So I just looked at him and said, "Yes, sir." He asked me if I'd disrobe, which I did, and, down to my underwear and a wet T-shirt. And so they examined me, eyes, nose, ears, throat, elbows, everything, and just talking between themselves. They'd walk off for a second, they'd talk, and that whole process probably took 30, 40 minutes to do that. And then the short one came over, and he reached into a box as he was talking to me, and he says, "How you feeling?" And I said, "I feel okay." I said, "I'm a little tired. I haven't slept in a long time." And he reaches in to get one of these gloves and pops it on his hand. Well, I immediately thought,
Oh,
I wasn't ready for that, but I had to participate. That's one thing about the military. When they're going to do something, they're going to do it, and so I just kind of, okay, well, here we go. And he goes, "Do you mind if I need to look at your gums?" I said, "What?"
Michael Johnson was still in that hospital while I was there. I didn't see him, but I sensed it for some reason. I couldn't talk to him. They wouldn't let me see him again.
He goes, I need to look at your gums." I'd never had braces or cavities or anything in my life. And, I was always good on that point. And, so I opened my mouth, and this man took his thumb and his index finger, and he spent about 2.5 minutes in my mouth, just squeezing my gums really hard, pressing down against the floor of my jaw inside, thumb up in the roof of the mouth. And he just really just kind of sectored every part of the inside of my mouth all the way back to where I had wisdom teeth at the time, all the way back into my wisdom teeth, and just pressing and pushing, and, and he would say something to himself, but I really couldn't make heads or tails of what he was saying. He didn't really speak something like a word that, like, "I see this," or "I see that," or then when he stopped, he walked back over to the tall guy, and they just turned their backs to me, and they were 10 feet away or so. The nurse is standing over there. And then they turn around and say something to her, and she walks over, and she's got a little metal plate or a tray, and it's got 2 vials on it about that long. And they were not glass, they were a metal vial. And he goes, he walks back over to me, both of them did. Didn't say anything else about my gum at all. I mean, I'm still feeling, I'm still feeling the pressure he left in my mouth when he stopped. So I didn't know what was coming next, but he goes, you have some burns on your body. And I said, excuse me? He goes, yeah, he reached up and he grabbed me he goes, right up here. He said, you got a little burn right here above this eye. And he said, look on your hand. And I went like this. And, I'm an old Tampa boy, so I know what sunburn's like. And when you spend time like in the Northwest, a long period of time, and then you go down to Tampa, Florida, and you lay on the beach, you're going to get smoked, man, because that happened to me. But I could feel it when they said that and really felt it more the next day. So he opens up this vial, and it had a tool in it. He opens it up, and he does the hand first, and he takes a sample from over here and then one from over here, and it's on the same tool.
How is it a sample?
It's just like a tweezer with a blunt end on it like this, and he just kind of goes like that.
Takes a piece of skin?
Takes a piece of skin, and then he goes and he goes to the next location. He does the same thing, but it's together. I mean, it wasn't the same. That piece of meat was with this piece, I guess. It just put it all together. He just snip like that, and then he reached up and he put it in that little vial and put a rubber stopper on top of it, laid it down on a tray, and he got the other one out. And he went right here above my eye, and he did the same thing. And they just took samples. Didn't take blood, didn't take urine, nothing. Didn't take hair sample, nothing. Put it on the vial. The nurse came over and picked the stuff up, went over there with it and put it down. They went over and talked for a few more minutes. And he said, Senior Woods, he says, you can go ahead and get dressed. He says, we got any questions, we'll let you know. And I said, yes, sir.
You got any questions?
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Well, if you got questions, how rude.
Yeah. They don't care, man.
I know. I get it.
They really don't care.
But God.
And then they just left. So here I am, putting my stuff back on. My clothes are still wet from the bath I took in the sink. I'm thinking, how much more of this am I going to? The nurse was gone, but those OSI guys were gone too. There was nobody out there. So I was literally by myself. And then I walked out the way I came in. And in the hallway, there was a driver for the commander's vehicle. So I saw him, and he's an airman first, I think. And I didn't even say anything to him. I just walked out and got in the back seat of the vehicle. And I remember saying something, I don't know what that was all about, but they didn't tell me a damn thing. And he didn't say anything at all. Drove me back to the SATAF building, got out. He made sure I went to the commander's office too. It seemed like they wanted to really watch everything that I did, where I went, in going to these to those places, whether it be over to the examination area with the flight surgeons and then back to the commander's office. They didn't want to lose sight of me or something. So I go back in and I got to do the formal report in again now. And all those people are staged back in there.
This is a spectacle.
And, so I go back in and report in. Colonel Spraker, he doesn't really tell me to stand at ease. I'm standing there at attention, and he says, he gives me a form and a pen, and he says, I'm going to put you in this little conference room right here. He goes, I want you to write everything that's happened to you and what we've discussed, everything. He says, I want you to do a full report from when you first saw this thing to being picked, everything, said from A to Z to being here. And I said, yes, sir. And I felt that wasn't the easy part. What I'd gone through already was the hard part. I still didn't know how I was going to explain this to my wife and the 2 Band-Aids on me. And mind you, I should have been in the missile field 3 days and come back the morning of the 4th. Well, I'd only been out 1 day. This happened. Now I'm back in 1 day, the next day. And I got Band-Aids on me. So this, but the question was going to be asked, and I knew it, and I didn't know how to answer that. But so I went in there and I sat down at this oak desk at the end and these old wooden chairs, oak chairs. I just tried to take a mental picture of all these things, because I knew they were going to be important some way or another. I don't know, I think to prove myself or something. So I took about the next hour and a half, maybe more, and I printed this whole thing Oh, and any mistake that you made, you have to line through the word and put an initial on it. You know that. So I wrote from A to Z the entire incident. Michael Johnson's name, the initial. I even knew the time of the alarm. I mean, everything. All the other information was in the security police blotter at November control. So that would be turned in on the fourth day, unless it was circumvented. They went out there and got it. I don't know. Because each blotter, when we arrived in the missile field, and this is what really gets me, trying to locate Michael Johnson, everybody's name, rank, and social security number is on that security police blotter. When you first get to the field, that's an entry that for every single person on that site, that information is there. So that is somewhere. And you could locate him by a social security number. I don't care where he is. If he pays taxes in this country, we could find him. But yeah, no, the AARO or FBI or anybody else, they've not done that yet, and I've challenged them to do so. So I write this whole thing up. It takes me a while, and they're still out there. They didn't leave. I don't know if they're drinking coffee, what they were talking about, what they were doing. So I go back out there, go back to his desk, stand in front of him at attention, hand it to him, put it on his desk. He turns it around, he takes it, he's reading it, looking at it, going through it. I mean, fine-tooth comb, and this thing's in carbon copy. It's 3 copies, from one page, and I had 2 pages of it, and it's super print is small, but because there's a lot of information there,
Yeah.
I wasn't given a copy. I wasn't offered a copy of anything. And once that was done, and it's signed, I signed it on the bottom, had my name, rank, a social security number, everything on that form. He takes it, sits it on the side, on his right side on his desk, and then he motions over for Captain Jack Reed. He comes over and he's got a form, and that's the part where I guess I don't know if we called it a non-disclosure at that time, but they read me the riot act and said that everything said within this confines of this room, and the people that know about this incident shall not speak about it to anyone else in any way, fashion, or form, including, spouses, brothers, sisters, anybody. That only the people in this room shall know about this, and the people that are involved with the initial investigation from back at November Control. And I agreed to it, and I said, yes, sir. So he turned it around to me, and I read pretty much everything I just described there, and I signed it and put my name, rank, and it was dated, and everything. My social security number was on it, and I wanted to ask, well, do I get a copy of that? They wouldn't give me a copy of anything. The medical records? No copy of any medical records at all. So once they were, I guess, pleased with what they had, after they reviewed, and I did have to go back into the other room while they talked amongst themselves for, 10 or 15 minutes. I came back out, and then I reported back to Colonel Spraker, and he said, you can call, home or whatever you got to do to you can go home the rest of the day. So that gave me, not only those 3 days, but it gave me an additional 3 days off, to just ponder this whole thing and get this in my mind, because I knew it was going to be people, especially who, my wife, that I had to explain this to. And then, of course, there were friends of mine that I worked with that were going to have questions. Well, they weren't even allowed to ask me questions, and I didn't see any of them for a long, long period of time, because they just keep you separated. And again, they never sent me back to November Control. I went to Kilo Control, which was the alternate command post. Wing Security Control is the command post for all activities in and around the missile field, or all things to do with missiles. In the event that CSC, Central Security Control, or Wing Security Control, however you want to call it, was compromised, then Kilo Control stands in as that control facility and direction, because all the supervision and all the officers reside at Kilo Control, which is right up next to the Wyoming border and is a sister flight to November Control. So they had me there and put me with a guy named Mark Wade. We had the same initials. He was a really nice guy, and he knew about it. And he was the one that I saw 2 mutilated cattle with. in the Kilo area early one morning, about 10 a.m. We had to sleep on a missile site until a maintenance team got there, and there was an investigation going on with local law enforcement at a corral area where there were 2 mutilated cattle, and we stopped and looked at them.
Yeah. The missing skin, the whole deal.
Trimmed around the mouth area, and I didn't know anything about that. I did know about Linda Moulton Howe looking for him at that time. And there was another thing that I want to say is that when all this stuff started going on, there was that newspaper or the Everybody Can't Stand to Read. Or
the Inquirer.
They had people going through all the missile sites, not the sites themselves, but Minot, Maelstrom, because, like what had happened to Robert Salas, at Maelstrom, in 67, wasn't it? 67. And what had happened at Minot. So they had all these people out trying to gather these stories. And we were told, of course, you couldn't talk to anybody.
You were told formally.
Yeah, you don't speak to anybody, any news media whatsoever. And they didn't call it news media. They just said news people at that time. They didn't have a word for media. And so that's where I had to live out the rest of my stay at Ellsworth Air Force Base was at Kilo Control with Mark Wade, and which was okay. I just tried to put it all behind me and think that it would never happen again, and it would all be forgotten about. But still, the fact always remained that for weeks, I worried about not doing my job. Was I going to be Article 15 or what was going to happen to me, which didn't happen. And
what's Article 15? That's
under the Uniform Code of Military Justice, where they see that you've done something, unscrupulous or illegal, or you just did anything that they don't approve of and you cause damage or hurt. There's many things. Your hair can be touching your ear and a commander see you, and you're out of 3510 standards, like you can't have that beard, you can't have this, and they can Article 15 you, which they suspend your rank for 6 months, take $600 or $800 from you or more. And it just, you don't make that much money anyway. I mean, they make a lot more now than we did that.
They use that threat quite regularly, right?
All the time. Yes, sir. Mm-hmm.
That's how they keep you in check?
Yeah.
You mess with your pension, mess with your rank, mess with your clearances.
Everything. Yeah. Everything. But anyway, about 15, 18 days later, I was at home in my apartment, still wondering the whole time, Chris, where is Michael Johnson? I wanted to speak to that man so badly I couldn't tell you. And all of a sudden I got this feeling, and a knock came upon my door. And we lived at Hainesway Apartments in Rapid City. And he had talked to some guys back in the barracks about where I lived. And sure enough, he came to my apartment to talk to me about it. And before he arrived, that knock, when it came on the door, I knew it was him. Don't have a clue why. I'd never been to my apartment before. I'd never met him personally like that in civilian clothes. So I opened the door and I said, Michael, man, how are you? He said, I'm okay. And with a direct look in my eyes, he said, we got to talk about this thing. And I said, yes, we do. I said, come on in. So he came in, just a simple one-bedroom apartment. And of course, my wife was there. And I said, well, she's going to find, I said, she suspects some things about what I've been having to go back to the base. And there was several times I had to go back and answer more questions, but I tried to block those out. And it was the same thing. He just kept trying to see if there was something I wasn't telling him, which there was, and I wasn't about to tell him anyway. And so he comes in and I said, let's draw what we saw. I said, I gave him a yellow notepad, and I had one too. And I said, I'm going to sit here, you sit there. And I think I put him at the dining room table and I sat at the coffee table at my couch. And I drew the craft and all that. And he drew the same thing. He remembered the bright lights. He remembered many things that I didn't even think he was aware of. And I told him, the state that he was in holding on to that steering wheel. And I remember him saying something like, no, I wasn't. I said, yes, you were. I said, Garza and I had to pull your hands off of that steering wheel. You did? I said, yeah.
What was his memory of it?
Well, he said that he heard, saw, and smelled everything that I did. And then he heard, do not fear, do not fear.
Did he see the beings?
No, he did not say that.
Because he didn't turn his head, yeah.
He didn't say that.
But he felt the do not fear?
Yeah.
Who said this first? Was it you or him?
Him.
He told you before you told him.
Yes.
So he's opening up to you, and he's giving you the exact same things that you experienced. And he said, and I felt do not fear?
And yes, do not fear, do not fear.
What was your reaction to that, Mario?
I just stood there with my mouth open. I said, you're kidding me. I said, man, I was freaking out. I said, you were just frozen to the steering wheel. He goes, I heard and saw. He goes, I saw everything. I said, did you see what was on the right side? No, he never saw them.
You told him?
Yes, I told him.
What was his reaction to that?
He didn't really have one. He just suspected it, but he didn't. I guess it was the angle or something, my right side and his left side. I don't know. But he said one thing that floored me, man, to the pits of my stomach. He said, but I remember your glove on a shiny floor. And I said, what? What are you talking about? A glove on the shiny floor. I had a really specialized pair of gloves that a B-52 bomber pilot gave me my first couple of nights when I was at Ellsworth, when I first was assigned there. And I was staying in the BAQ, which is like the on-base hotel. And the rooms there are not single rooms. They're like shared with bunk beds. There might be 10 or 15 people in there one night, all come into the base, or there may be one person in there, or, that kind of thing. Whoever's arriving usually stays there until there's an assignment, or till their rooms are assigned to them and they meet their commanders and people in their divisions the next day, literally. And so he gave me a pair of these aviator's gloves, Chris, that came up to about right here now and fit on the outside of your parka, but they were like a mitten. They covered 3 fingers. Then you had your index finger for trigger control for your whatever your trigger was in an aircraft or on a weapon. And they had a fur backing, and they were like a yellow gold color, beautiful glove.
My dad had the same ones.
You can't even find them today. I've hunted everywhere for them. And
I remember as a kid, we'd wear them and we'd just wipe the snot off our face with the, with the furry side of it in the cold.
Well, that's what it's for too. It's for that. You just wash it off once in a while, or maybe not. But I remember your glove on a shiny floor. And I had no recollection of a shiny floor. I said, what are you even talking about, dude? Michael, what are you talking about? And he goes, I'm telling you, Mario, your glove was laying, he said it was laying face up this way. Your right-hand glove was laying on a shiny floor. And I said, the only thing I knew to do, I ran in my bedroom where I kept my ditty bag in the closet because my wife didn't want to see it. It had to be put away, right? So I grabbed my ditty bag and I came back out in the living room. The whole time, this woman's just she's sitting in one of the upright chairs just watching this and listening to all this going on. I don't know, in disbelief or what it was, but I unzipped that bag, man, and there's underwear, there's toiletries, there's all kind of stuff, extra uniforms, there's a radio in there. You couldn't have cameras, unfortunately. That's one thing they wouldn't allow us to do, and or take pictures of anything on the site or something like that. But so I just dumped my bag out on the couch. Everything was there except my right-hand glove. Left-hand glove was there, no right-hand glove. Never recovered that. So I guess they kept it, or whoever, whatever, kept it. But I couldn't believe he brought that up, and he said that to me. I saw your glove on a shiny floor.
That's proof.
Yeah. He lived in the barracks, like I say, and he gave me his address that day, his parents' address in Chicago, Illinois. And we talked a great deal. He said he loved to fish, and we talked about some things like that. Things we didn't get to talk about working together. We didn't get to discuss any of that stuff. And usually we all, as guys, we always do, and like motorcycles, or, you ride a bicycle, or you skateboard, you play, whatever you might do, weightlift, whatever. We didn't get to talk about any of that. But we got to talk about a little bit of it that day. So I wrote it down on a nice index card, something, and I put it in my Bible that the pastor gave me when my father passed away. And I kept it up on a dresser, and I had it for years. And he wrote it. I might have recopied it or something, but I had his information. I wish I'd had his social security number. And back in that time, a guy would probably give you your social security number and not think two things about it. You can't do that today, of course, but back then he could have done that. I wish I'd have had something else I could have latched onto him later in years, because those thoughts have always been in my mind. What else could I have done to wrangle him, to get him back in if he's still alive? Wherever he may be, he's the other half of this whole thing, wherever he is, regardless of who's entwined in this history. He's the other half of this that I've just got to find. I've got a friend, Steve Zwemke, and he's in Rapid City. And he's the fellow that led me to the state trooper that took the call from Wing Security Control to come and look for us. And that's perhaps something else I should address, because I didn't even find that out until that Discovery Plus in 2021.
How long after the initial incident when you blacked out was that call made?
Well, it was made approximately 2:00 in the morning.
So not too long after. So you were missing at that point.
Yeah, we were missing. And not only that, but Wing Security Control had contacted the local law enforcement in Sturgis. They had a larger police force, and they sent 2 deputies 30 miles north to where we were located looking for us. So we had a state trooper and 2 deputies in 2 different cars looking for us.
And if you're out there, you'll see somebody. If they're driving the car, you'll eventually see headlights.
Yeah, you absolutely. There's no way around it.
You were just not there.
Mm-mm. And we were so far off the road, but behind New Lake Reservoir Dam to start with, we just had to be located. And the only way to locate us was that radio signaling triangulation.
Who knows where you were before that?
Don't know. But what I was getting at, I didn't find that out until 21, that these officers, by the son of the state trooper, his son came to November 5 or 100 yards down from November 5 because the producer didn't want to stand where our vehicle was located, because there's a cattle, some type of red and white cattle production or storage facility on the site now at November 5. And do that because there's a rock bed there, and they keep their hay and stuff up off the ground, out of when they're feeding their cattle and stuff. Because it's all ranching area. But so in essence, we had about 11 people looking for us. And I never knew that. I was never told that a state trooper and 2 deputies were looking for us as well.
You found out in what year?
I think it was 2021 when we went out there with Discovery Plus, and it was by total accident that these 2 guys even showed up watching us film on the side of the road,
and they knew your story.
Yeah, they had seen it somewhere before or something. I'm really not sure. One of them had, and he told the other. But it was a crazy thing on Ormond Road, dirt road, and you can go all the way to Wyoming on that road, I believe. There was a parade of people because, Newell is such a small town. The population today is 650. It was 230 at the time. And when they found out that there was a film crew out there filming on Ormond Road, so we get this big parade of people coming by, and there was one guy that drove by in a pickup truck, and he had 2x4s in an old pickup truck in the little slots, that's on the bed of the pickup truck around it, and he had chicken wire around it, and he had a horse standing up in the middle in the back of that pickup truck, and we all just looked at that and went, "Wow, it's such a place, man. It's such a place there."
You think there's other people in Newell that saw the craft?
I hope there is. And what we thought that
there's a case in Newell though in the 60s as well, right?
Not sure.
I think I read about a flying saucer sighting, multiple flying saucers in the 60s in Newell.
And I will tell you, in Sturgis there is, and Deadwood.
Yeah,
big cylinder type craft, and in both of those areas.
Prior to your,
But going back to that, I was so amazed when I found out that these guys knew that this took place. I just feel so jilted by the way the Air Force ended up, by what they did, and or how they did it. I don't think they knew any better. I really don't. And if they did,
It's upsetting.
If they did, then shame on them for treating their own people like that, because when you go in the military, regardless of what job you're in, there's a chance that somewhere along the line that you could be involved in some kind of combat action and lose your life because you're fighting for this country and the people in it because you care about them. I do. I still do. I took the oath, and now it's never gone away from me. I'd go back today if they'd have me at 70 years old in a heartbeat. But just to find those things out, it really floored me. And that glove on that shiny floor, I've never forgotten that statement. I've never forgotten the ice bullet that he sent out when he said that to me. It just took me aback. And I just wish so badly that we could find him.
Well, if this rings a bell, if your family member is named Michael Johnson, if you've got a grandpa out there, a father, an uncle, a cousin that's in perhaps the Detroit area, or at least has family in the Detroit area and served in the Air Force at Ellsworth in the 70s, late 70s, mid to late 70s, reach out to us, figure it out. I got an email here. I would love any information you have on this, even if it's the tiniest bit of information, but this is the internet. And, luckily with, you on here and people watching, like there is a chance that you can get an answer to this.
Always, just anything. I just want to know about him, whether he says, I don't want to talk to you or
sure,
I don't want to come forward. It kind of reminds me of Terry Lovelace and Toby, his partner, and Toby did not take it well at all from what Terry's told me and ended up costing him his life, whether it be from, he had a problem afterwards, and it's very hard to contend with, and it's very difficult for people that care about you to hear about it and to experience it, because it affects you every day. I'm not the same person at home that I am here telling you this. This thing affects me all the time. I watch stuff on the news. I watch stuff, on TV or YouTube videos, about people that I know that things like this have happened to, and it's all going somewhere. And I feel at this point of the game that archaeology and what's being discovered in say, for instance, Egypt, I think there's a lot to be said for in the correlation of all this coming together in some way. And I don't know if our government or any government will ever say, okay, this is what we have, throw it out on the table. Here's this piece, here's that piece. We glean this information. That engine came from this piece right here. That happened, this happened. Here's an individual. Here's different types of individuals. I just don't see them saying that. I think the only way that could ever happen is if they themselves just make themselves known and just shut everybody else up. Just say, here we are, what you going to do now? And I don't think they're coming here to harm us. And I think they've been here a long time already and know everything about us.
Well, let's talk about them for a second.
Mm-hmm.
You ended up getting regressed hypnotically by Bob Upton and Yvonne Smith, was it?
Yeah. That was with John Blitch's boat in
That's
LA.
right.
Yeah.
At two separate occasions. Mm-hmm. Now, what's interesting about this is like many people, and I've been able to actually hypnotize people through like entertainment purposes as a magician. Like I've dabbled there and I've studied it, and I have friends who do it professionally for entertainment. It's very real. It's very and for someone who I know the feeling, because I've seen it happen to people so many times, the feeling of, you can't hypnotize me. I've seen firsthand, and I've, partook in this firsthand.
Yes.
Those people getting hypnotized.
Mm-hmm.
And it is quite shocking to people, especially people who don't really believe in hypnosis,
right? To
watch someone you know and trust and love and understand be hypnotized.
Absolutely.
You see that and it changes you. It changes you. Go, oh, wait a second. He just hit an off switch on him. That's so strange. So you, and I say this because I want to preface, you were that person. You were like, not for me.
That's right.
Yeah. Could you tell us what happened?
Yeah. Robert Upton, Bob Upton, he was trying to zoom into specific items or points of interest that Robert Hastings had put forth, and in hypnotizing me. And the way he did it, it just seemed as if I was going to sleep. And I remember it because they were roofing my house. Just after a hurricane, they were re-roofing my house. I had damage.
Because it's at your home.
At my home, yeah, in my back bedroom. So you could hear all these guys with nail guns and walking across the roof. And even though my roof is very high on my home, you could still hear it. And I thought, well, there's no way you can be able to hypnotize me with all this noise going on. And that hadn't been planned. He had set it up for that particular date. I think he drove up from Jacksonville. I live in Brunswick. And or it may have been further away than that. I can't remember yet, or I just don't recall. But so anyway, but all this stuff going on, he somehow manages to get me to thinking I'm going down a stairwell or something. He said, into the water. And I kept thinking about that noise correlation of going down a stairway and like there's a couple of places I've been in my life, like in springs and stuff, where you walk down a stairway into the water, like Blue Sinks and some of those places. And that's what I did. And before I knew it, I was smelling that smell and visualizing, certain things that he was asking me questions about, and he was guiding me, in this. And there were things that I came up against, visions that I saw. That really, really upset me.
Are they coming to you now?
Yeah. I answered all of his questions, and it was very difficult because I had like a lot closer reaction or proximity to what was on the right side of our vehicle, to these beings on the right side of the vehicle. I mean, I literally, maybe it was my heartbeat, but
Okay, so he was in control.
That little thing was on the other side of the vehicle. That little craft was on the other side of the vehicle. Where Michael was.
And what was Michael doing?
He was still looking straight ahead. I don't even think he could blink his eyes.
Okay.
within a couple of feet of them. They were within a couple of feet of me, and I was on my back. And I had a whole lot of pain in this wrist right here. My hand was turned outward like this, and I was being grappled in some way here from this direction. And something was putting pressure down inside of my wrist here. A tall one was doing that to my right wrist. It's like in and out glimpses of a living nightmare. And that smell just permeates, it just goes through you, and you can't get rid of it. I knew there was something wrong with me because it seems as if you come up to a veil of, I want to call it a veil, like there's something in front of you that stops you from looking past it, that extremely excites. I don't want to call it fear. It's something that you have to get past to see what's on the other side, though. And that's why I call it a veil. And when I did, I felt like I shook myself apart I felt like I was just shaking apart inside. And somehow or another, I managed to get myself into AFib. I'd never had that before, never knew what it was, never had any kind of heart issues whatsoever. And I remember he kept telling me that, nothing could harm me, but believe me, where I was, everything was harming me or trying to. And then I couldn't understand what I was really experiencing. And I guess after about 45 minutes or so, and I answered every question he said, I went through every question that he asked me. I answered everything as the best I could, but that veil persisted. And when I went through that veil, as I feel as if I did, and saw what I saw, and still see it right now, even looking at you, I still see it, just like it can just push over a vision, and I just see. I just thought my heart was going to come out of my chest. At no time could you hear any of the stuff going on my roof or anything like that. That was all the noise that was taking place up there, and all the work that was being done. And he got to a point where he felt as if he had to get me out of it. I'd answered everything he asked me. And when he brought me up, I knew there was something wrong, but I did tell him one thing that I think surprised him. And I told him, I said, those big dark eyes that the little ones have, they're shields. They're not their eyes. It's a shield that shields them from bright light. Because their eyes, I saw a round pupil about that big around, is huge.
What color?
Blue.
Light blue?
A medium blue. Not light or dark blue, but just a medium blue. And I saw it plain as day. I mean, right there in my face. And that's the thing with hypnosis, how it can do, I guess, how it can bring a vision to you like that.
Was that the tall one?
No, that was a short one that had the eye thing. The tall ones are completely different.
And the fear comes from that tall guy, whether it's a guy or whatever, I don't know. But that's where the fear is instilled. The little ones don't make you have that kind of fear, but that big one did, and that tall one did. Big one, you think that he's got ready to eat you or something, and then not a damn thing you can do about it. You don't have any control of yourself. You have no functionality of your own body. You can't defend yourself
structurally. And I think there was a male, the one that was that I cussed at or whatever I said, that I was.
You cussed at it?
Told him he's hurt me, and
you couldn't move.
Yeah, and the other thing was this table that I was on. For instance, that's my head. This is the table that I felt. And I got to draw this just right, but looking at it, in this way, this was like some type of a field that was projected this way over my body, and my hand was up through it, like this. And they were reaching down into this, like some type of a
psychic veil or something? Or?
I guess on the craft, because it's as if my hand's in their atmosphere and I'm in my own atmosphere.
Mm-hmm.
But something that you could be pulled in and out of, or parts of your body moved in and out of.
Was it invisible, or was it
a blue hue, like a, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, it'd be just like something
opaque, or
no, it's
like glass or gas or
projected almost, something that like a field generated in and you're inside of it, but you know what he was doing. It ended up being a female. I heard a female voice, but
You heard a voice
yeah, just
in your ears,
in my body,
and it was female.
It was a female. It was a female voice. We're not, not hurting you, or we're not hurting you, or something like that. I don't know the exact word, but we're not hurting you, or we're not hurting you.
They never moved their mouths, though. They talk to you inside. They talk to a gel or something. They talk to something that they put in you. It resonates.
And then I was cussing, and that's what I remember about that.
You were yelling, physically yelling?
I don't know if I was yelling, but I was cussing because I was hurting.
Yeah.
I was afraid and I was hurting.
There's a lot of pain. Do you
Yeah.
think the pain was fear induced, or do you think that it was like real pain? Like
It was real pain.
Yeah.
It was burning real pain in that wrist. And I always think about that. Right now, my hands, I don't know if that has anything to do with anything. My hands are completely numb. And there's other things going on. I do have 2 marks on my body. Besides those burns, I have 2 marks. Both of them. One is under my left arm. The other's on my left ankle. I sent you pictures of those also. And I don't have answers for all of it. I really don't. And people can say or think what they want, but I only know what I experienced and what I've gone through. And it's been 48 years ago for me. But there's so much more. There's so much more to the whole thing that it's sometimes it's just very difficult to arrange it all, to tell it. It just, and recalling things like this, sometimes more comes back than what I went in with. I pick up more than I first started with.
And you got to process that.
Yeah.
Did you see Michael?
Yeah. And with Yvonne Smith, he was laying opposite to me in a direction, like he was facing the opposite direction, which I was. And when I talk about the little guy with the blue eyes, he was between both of us. And there was a hand on me right here. And I don't know if that was for a calming effect, but I'm shaking like hell about it right now. But I don't know what that, and mind you, hypnosis is extremely, speculative. And I have never, ever said that I've been abducted. I've never said that because I don't know that for real. I only know what visions came into my mind and through hypnosis, but I don't recollect physically of ever being abducted. I know I've had close proximity, and I know I've smelled them. I know I've seen them. But that's as far as I'll go with that.
I understand.
Yeah, Yvonne Smith, she's very good at what she does. And I think that's when I learned different things in this hypnosis with about Michael and about seeing the visions that I've seen, because, and that doesn't even include the dreams, that all this, that comes with all of this from the very beginning, from within a couple of days of after this whole thing's happened,
Dreams of them or dreams of other things?
Apocalyptic type things, tidal waves, desert, underwater, earthquakes, the sun, blast from the sun, things nuclear explosions. I've even felt the heat from a dream and a nuclear explosion. I've even felt the heat from a blast, that you'd be vaporized, of course, but I've done that and felt that. But when she hypnotized me, we were on the water on a large boat, on a large craft. And on the dock were seals and in LA, right there by Long Beach. And they were so loud, like barking dogs on those aluminum floating docks they have there. And that was the night that was a super cold night they had in Los Angeles when it snowed. Even on the Hollywood signs, there was snow and ice. I mean, it went from, I don't even know what the temperature was when I first arrived there, but it got cold as I don't know what, man. And then that was when we finished that night, Age of Disclosure, when I finished filming that. And it was work because I had to fly out the next day. So I went with John Blitch, and then Yvonne came down to do this hypnosis for us. And but I think being over water had a greater effect than laying on a bed in a home on concrete versus directly over water, because
relaxing.
Yeah, it was a lot different. Seemed like it was more conductive, and her questions were just crisp and clear. There wasn't anything that was shrouding them in any way. It just was a whole lot easier for some reason. And I was afraid of AFib again because I've been in it a couple of times now. Just happens, and it just happened from that first initial time. Then with Bob Upton, then to her. But I had a pill, and she was. We didn't record it. We recorded the audio. We didn't have any kind of ability to record it, live, but or on camera. And I had this pill. My doctor had given me amiodarone, I think is what it's called. And he told me if I ever felt symptoms of AFib, Dr. Strickland did, to take one of these. So I had it with me, and she had it in her hand the whole time, about melted it away. It was okay though. And she's a super nice lady, and we've talked several times back then. But some of those visions are almost indescribable. The things that I've seen, as far as like dreams go or apocalyptic stuff. And I just hope none of that ever happens.
Do you think that's from them showing that to you?
I don't know. I don't know where else it could have come from other than that. I don't know if they put things in your mind to maybe push you in one direction, or to think of a cure for something. Or
were you shown anything on the craft by them, according to the hypnotic regressions and not to your conscious memory?
A room with old things in it. Like I sent you a drawing of that old box TV, an old wrought iron.
Yeah.
Pole lights that go from the floor to the ceiling. It was like a room of antiques. And I was allowed to go in this room, and on the back wall, there was a round window, and it had a slice taken out of it. Like it was just a slice taken out of a round circle. That was a window. And I was told I could go look out this window. By a small one, by a small grave.
You were told in your head?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I was still in my head, and I'm kind of laughing about it. I'm thinking, what are all these old things in here for? This old box TV and a old wooden radio, like real old. And but I wouldn't look out the window. I was too afraid. And then I started noticing things around me, because I was allowed to stay for just a few minutes or so, and even the walls and the baseboards were powered. Everything in it was like alive. The shelving had lights in it, much like your couch, like those kind of lights. Everything had lights in it and was touchable, was energized. Everything. There was nothing that was stagnant like that wall right there. It all had something. It all
had energy.
It all had energy. Everything.
Even in the antique room?
Not the items themselves, but where they were. Yes, all of it. The shelving, the supports, and then as I was led out of there by a little guy, I'm walking in this hallway, and it's all alive. and an open area opens up, a vast open area that's just huge. And there's just like thousands of them, and like those lights right there, just thousands of them up in these little cubicles, as far as you could see, and right and left and up and down. They were just, everybody was like ants having a job or something. And I just kept following him, and then I turned left into a room, and the room was full of steam. And I followed him in there. He vanished in the steam, and I followed in there, and I woke up. And I don't know what that was, but hypnosis again, is a strange thing, and dreams are strange. And I dream some really crazy dreams sometimes.
When you think back to the memories or the visions that you got during your regression, do they feel similar to the dreams you had, or do they feel more similar to seeing the beings beside your truck?
It feels real.
It feels more like the latter.
It feels more like the latter, yeah. That's a good question. Never been asked that before. There's sometimes when I go to sleep, I can go back into that same part of that dream and continue on, if that's a dream.
In that big room?
Yeah, all of it. I mean, and smell.
Was the smell present in that room as well? Was it all?
It was, but it wasn't as pungent. It was just there. Maybe I'd had more time in it or something and gotten more used to it.
Got more used to it. That makes sense.
That's the way I have to straighten these things in my mind. I if not, you just might as well go lock me up somewhere, I guess. And you know what I want people to understand is that it's if you have a loved one at home and you live and partake in this field, you have to be very aware of how it affects them. And I never meant to put anybody through anything that's happened to me, or I'm not an expert in any of this in any way, but I've never meant to like upset my wife or like my wife now, she didn't deserve any of this. I didn't tell her till 1995. And I just ate it and lived with it until I didn't have a clearance anymore. Acute clearance. That's when I lost my job at the Y-12 facility, or actually I was at K-25 at that time when the big layoffs were occurring, and that's what happened to me. I went out with about 10,000 people, believe it or not. There was that many people in the Oak Ridge area, and all of them. At one time, Oak Ridge had more PhDs there than any other place in the country, and now they have all moved in there or in Los Alamos. And I can't understand how they took Sean Kirkpatrick over to ORNL. It just blows my mind. Where I came from, there he is now. I just wish Monday I'll have a chat with him, but that was really bad how AARO did that whole thing and that first set of interviews they did with people.
Well, you testified for AARO.
4 hours and 19 minutes.
4 hours and 19 minutes, and you said what you said to me?
Everything, and then probably some too. Yeah. And of course, it's under oath per se. As they read you a whole litany of things that you have to agree to before you ever do it. And of course, there was always the talk about Congress and that kind of thing. But
sure,
it's like one guy told me, he says, they're not ready to talk about what you saw at that right side of that window or any of your dreams or hypnosis, which I wouldn't talk about that anyway. I can only talk about what in the physical conscious world that I saw, smelled, and experienced.
Still too much.
Yeah, they can't deal with it.
They want to light in the sky.
Yeah, they just want to light in the sky at a far distance.
Yeah.
That's one thing I kind of...
But that's not, your fault.
No.
You know what I mean?
Like,
that's...
Not at all.
You, out of all this, are like such a brave person for stepping forward, for talking about this, knowing full well, what some people might think. And like, there's no good reason to talk about this stuff.
No.
For anyone coming out being reluctant, like, I get it. You know what I mean? Like, and you get it more than anyone. Like, yeah, what's the point of coming out if the very people who are supposed to fight for transparency are the ones denying
Yes.
Flat out that there's any correlation between these nuclear bases and the UFOs.
Yes.
Like even that, which is so far from where we are with this story, they're not even willing to go there. Like, it's kind of this, it's aggravating, and it must be aggravating
It
for
is.
you.
It is.
It's the same people that told you, if we have questions, we'll call you.
Yes.
What do you mean if you have questions?
If you have questions.
What about me? Like, what about
Yeah.
you? Who's answering those frickin' questions?
Yeah.
Like, this is unbelievable.
The best part about all that, they call you and they get you on the phone for an hour, 2 hours, interview you on the phone. There's 2 or 3 of them, and they tell you there's only one guy, which is BS. One of the best books that's helped me is Out of Time by Steve Aspen. I know you know who he is, and he just wrote a second book, and I can't recall the title right now. I've got it in my bag in there, and I've been reading on it. There is such a correlation with this in time, and his book has helped me to think about this, because I think that time was displaced where I was, or in that vehicle. However humans can understand that, I honestly felt that there was something to do with time and how they did what they did, the time in which they do it. But they understand that much better than I. But he's brought about a lot of really good ideas and findings in his book Out of Time, which I have found a whole lot of correlations in his book as the way I feel and what I think about. The other thing is that when AARO does these interviews, and I don't think they're going to be doing them like they did before. I think it's gone way above that now. I just don't think they have the credibility any longer to talk to anybody, because a lot of us felt pretty jilted by that whole thing, you know? Not only do they want you to testify if they call you before Congress, they want you to pay your own way up there, pay your own hotel bill and everything, and all associated expenses. Like, you just got an extra, you can just go to D.C. You know how expensive D.C. is. You can just go there with $3,000 or $4,000 extra that you've got laying around to testify before people that are just going to look at you and say, laugh at you, or whatever they're going to do. I don't know. But I sometimes worry that you can say too much, because I just want the truth to be told. I don't want any embellishments. I don't want any type of guessing. I don't want any type of information concerning myself to be put out there that's not something that I said, did, or adhere to. And I've had several times where things have been said that I didn't say or that I didn't do. And it just really bothers me that, you know, and the reason I bring this up is because one of the guys at AARO that interviewed me, or it was Congress that interviewed me to go before Congress, kind of made fun of me and said, and I have his name and his phone number and everything, and I kind of said something to him that I hope it resonated with him, but he said, well, just keep doing what you're doing. He says, and we'll let you know when we'd like to hear from you, or something. And that's after we spent 2.5 hours on the telephone. My time is as valuable, if not more, to me than it is than to him. I think, man, where do you think you're coming from by talking like that to people? And that's why a lot of people don't want to do that, don't want to go before Congress or whatever. But
I think what you're doing here will resonate on a deeper level with the people listening than watching it on a C-SPAN feed.
Yeah,
I do.
And I appreciate that. I just want to do the right thing. I want answers, and as everybody else wants answers, and I'm not trying to put down anybody else to obtain those answers. I only know what happened to me and to Michael Johnson, more or less, until he comes forward. And that's all I know to relay. Everything else, people are putting out some brilliant publications and books on the subject matter, so that's increased everybody's knowledge, and will continue to do so. And I'm just looking forward to the future and just where this is all going, because if we can just get 10% of the technology that I've seen in my lifetime with these beings and these craft, we wouldn't have polluted skies and polluted grounds and polluted waters and plastic polluting everything. And maybe we could just be a better society. Perhaps we'd have better answers, and there wouldn't be as much violence. There wouldn't be a whole lot of things, but people would have purpose, whether it be a job in a new technology, because it'll be all encompassing when it finally does make its way, because mankind will shift. In my humble opinion, when those kind of energies are discovered, and if the powers that be are not corrupt and self-serving and enlightens the rest of the world with it, think of the potential that we have as a planet and as a civilization to move forward. The things that are going to be discovered in Egypt, I do think they were a Class 1 civilization. Prior to whatever happened 12,500 years ago, whatever calamity took place, I think they were a Class 1 civilization, and we're not there yet.
Well, by the time this comes out, you'll have already gone to Egypt.
Mm-hmm. Next month.
How excited are you?
I can't contain myself. I'm about to jump out of my skin now.
Yeah, our friend Amar.
Yeah.
Amar is, just such a generous.
He is, man.
Soul. He's the kindest person I know, and he's got just the heart of a saint, and he's really, truly in it for selfless reasons and to help uplift the world into this new sort of era. And we need soldiers like him on our side. We need more of them. There are too few of that man. And he is offered to, after hearing your story, take you to Egypt to fly you out.
Yeah. It blows my mind.
And that's where his family's from. He's got a wild history with Egypt.
I can't wait to meet.
Did you see him skydive over the over the pyramids?
Yeah, man. That's cojones, man, because you probably got in trouble for that.
I'm kind of sad that I'm not going, because I wanted to go, and I'd spoken to Amar about going. I spoke to you about going as well.
Yeah.
I'll be on tour at that moment. But, if anything happens and the tour doesn't happen or for whatever reason, I'm there.
Man, that would be wonderful.
I'm 100% there.
Yeah.
I if not just to witness your relationship with Egypt, because I know that, you speak about it, and it's hard to talk about these things. It's hard enough to talk about these things. I get your reluctance in not wanting to, go full on into all of these conspiracies or whatever, because you have to keep some reality.
Yeah, you have to.
Because otherwise your story is just going to get confabulated and get twisted. And so you gotta stay grounded. But
you got to stay on course, man. Just keep your ship on course. Let the rest do what they will.
But I want to see the kid inside you.
Mm-hmm.
I want to see that. I want to see you light up when you see Egypt. So hopefully Amar is able to capture that.
My God. I don't, and he said he had to have camera equipment. You had to have like a 90-day pass or some kind of prerequisite, or you had to fill out paperwork before you could even go there to film.
Oh, it's extremely strict.
I had no idea.
There's also the museum.
Yeah, I'm going to
that
Cairo Museum.
Oh my gosh, it looks so amazing.
I did get to see Tutankhamun in Denver, Colorado.
Really?
Yeah, I saw the whole display in Denver.
Wow,
years ago. Yeah, and that was I could have spent 10 days there. I'm telling you, there's something alive there that we have, whether it's alive, meaning living today or not. But there's something that, and you've made drawings and had views of that too, what's underground there. I always knew there was something underground. And I didn't know because I've never been there, but somebody I've been listening to is Jeffrey Drummond.
Mm-hmm.
Jeffrey Drummond.
Not familiar.
He's an investigator there, and I guess he's some type of a scientist that he's put together an entire sequence that all three pyramids performed and functioned to create lightning. And that in turn created lightning storms and energies and kept the Sahara green, from what I understand, from what I've listened to. But he's found piping, he's found all kinds of stuff, and does a really good job at explaining that stuff.
It's incredible. It's a place with such mystery, and it draws so many people to it.
Mm-hmm.
Not only the people of Egypt, but the people around the world are drawn.
Oh, man.
You know, and there are plenty of megalithic, impossible structures around the world, by the way, you know, whether it's Baalbek or all these other places.
Yeah.
But something about the pyramid draws people towards them. And there definitely is more than meets the eye. I like the idea. A friend of mine, George St. Pierre, UFC fighter.
Yeah.
He's extremely invested in paleontology and ancient archaeology, in the ancient astronaut theories.
Mm-hmm.
And he went there. And because, you know, he's pretty big celebrity.
Yes.
He got this personal tour of the king's chamber, and they, you know, guys with guns and everything, and they blocked off the door for him, and they put him in the
sarcophagus,
whatever that is.
Over.
And the guy stood in the corner of the room and just started humming like this type of deal. And he goes, I've never felt that type of vibration. And it wasn't loud. It was just your body was thrumming like a tuning fork. And,
absolutely is.
And for someone who's left his body, I know what that feels like.
Yeah.
Like that's the feeling of
I'm gonna
having.
do it.
And I want, oh my gosh.
I'm going to do it. I'd like to take a tuning fork. I've got a couple of tuning forks.
Oh, yeah.
I'd like to bang on
do
those
some
things,
experiments.
see what they do. Yeah.
Well, if you ever leave your body, come say hi.
I will.
You come say hi and be like, what are you doing?
I don't know if I'd come back. You know what I mean? If I, depending on where you go, I guess. I don't know if I'd come back, but.
Do you think there is a relationship between the beings that you saw and Egypt?
Yes.
You think that is them?
I don't know if it's them exactly, but they know of that technology, and in my opinion, and they know its true function. Or functions, I should say.
There's an interesting correlation. There are a few interesting correlations. Obviously, you know, the smell, you know, we didn't really touch on, but like, you know, since you've probably come across a lot of similar cases that have said the same thing with the ammonia sulfur smell.
Yes.
For instance, I'm reminded, I think the most famous case of which, other than Whitley Strieber, because he also had like burnt hair, cardboard smell, like this putrid sort of scent. But James Fox's documentaries in Virginia.
Yeah.
With these beings. What was that like hearing about that?
Oh. That was Brazil, right? That's Brazil. I just.
The whole town stunk up.
Yeah, and they were seen. I mean, that's the thing about it. They were seen. Now, how do they hush that up so quickly? How is that just put under wraps so quickly? How can the government or anybody else move on that? Because many people saw
hundreds
of these beings. I mean, saw them. And how is that stopped? How can it be? Are cell phones collected or cameras collected? They search homes. How did they slow that down?
All of the above.
But it brings me back, honestly, to 1961, when everybody saw those three craft above those church steeples at D. Queen Elementary, and nobody talked about it. Like it was like forgotten about. As soon as they were gone, it was all over. There was nothing else to talk about. All day, the rest of the week. My mother didn't even really mention it any further. How's that happen?
It's a good question. It's a great question. I'd love to know.
How's that happen? And I think about it all the time. I think, why wasn't that talked about all day long? Well, where's the newspaper clippings? Because, you know, people always read the newspapers back in the 60s, you know. It wasn't the news like we have today. And what news there was, it was pretty real news. You know, you had Walter Cronkite, all the rest of them, you know. But
you would have had to, it's either one of two options. It's either somehow the beings or the technology is responsible for that within that bubble or whatever that is, or there's a psychological factor that just happens when you're faced with something so foreign.
Yeah.
You know, I'm reminded of James Fox once again, out of the blue, where he had the Phoenix Lights.
Phoenix Lights, right.
Sort of fly over this town, and there's this story of these ladies having tea, and they're just having tea, and all of a sudden they're looking at this craft fly over, this massive craft.
Yeah, it was huge.
Going right over them so slowly, and they all just silently watch it go by. And the second it's out of view, they go right back to drinking tea.
Mm-hmm.
And you go, what?
How did that?
What do you mean?
That?
How would you not scream, run? And the truth is,
Grab a camera, take off in a car after it. Yeah.
I'm reminded of a movie. I forget what the movie is, but there's this one really shocking scene where there's this elderly couple. They're sitting in their backyard, and behind them, the camera's facing them. Behind them, you see a Boeing 747 or something coming towards them. Very small, but it starts getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And eventually, when it's kind of maybe that big in the sky, big enough to be like, what's going on? They get up. And and you see them both looking at this object getting bigger and bigger as it gets close to them. And they're just staring at it in disbelief, thinking, well, what's going on? What is that thing? And not until it was too late did they go and start moving away, and then they got hit.
Yeah.
It was like they were frozen watching it. And I said to myself, that's probably how it would really happen.
Yeah.
You wouldn't run and scream and wake up your neighbors and be like, we got to go. The plane's going to crash. You would stare at it until it hit you right in the face.
Yeah, you really, yeah.
Because you're wondering, what the hell am I looking at?
Mm-hmm.
So I
think
think
what you're looking at is when you realize what you're seeing.
Yeah.
And I would put that on a damn T-shirt, because that's
that moment
in time for me. It, as I said, it really wasn't. When I realized what I was looking at, is when I really just went.
Really large what?
Craft.
Craft. And describe the craft?
It's round. It's a sphere.
And when you realize, was that realization, oh my God, aliens?
Yeah.
Was that the realization?
Other beings. And then, yeah, just beings from elsewhere, just beings. I really didn't call them aliens. I just call them
other people.
Yeah, other people, other beings is what I thought.
It's a afraid to leave the vehicle. I should have just stepped out. I'm scared.
Okay, you're safe now, Mario. We're just looking at a movie.
I mean, that must be such a eye-opening experience of oh my God, it's all true. Oh my God, everything is true. It's all true. They exist. They're here.
It's that approach from where they were and how they weren't touching the ground, man. They were just gliding. They weren't on the ground. They were just there was no heads going up and down as you see, it was no bobbing and weaving like you'd have in a line formation of soldiers marching. It was just straight on. And the tall one, he had this thing on his chest that was the same color as this, the
wand
that was in that one's.
What
waist.
color was that wand?
The tip of it was like a yellow, like a bright orange yellow.
And the rest of it?
I couldn't see the rest. It wasn't lit up. It was just that piece was lit up on the end of it. And then, but his chest, that thing on his chest was lit up, and it was a good size. It wasn't just a little thing. It was like that size on his chest. And it was the same color as that thing.
Was it circular?
No, it was shaped like I guess like an octagon, like a stop sign.
Okay.
Similar to that. And maybe not the exact same, but it was twisted in kind of that way. And then their heads were down here, and he was this much taller than they were. So he was 2 feet or so taller than the smaller ones. And they weren't gray. They had like a purplish tint to them in some way. Their head, what I could see as flesh or whatever the outer color of their body is. It wasn't gray. It was this color's not that far off. And I'm colorblind now, so just help me out here. But
is it because of, did their skin look like it was thin?
Yes.
And like bruised almost?
No, just real thin.
Like you could almost see the veins through their...
Yeah, or see anything through it.
And that's why it might have been sort of blue colored, almost like...
Possibly. They were just real different colored. And the tall one was a gray color, a gray silver color. And
like a solid gray.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And the facial structure was a whole lot different, much pointier chin.
Longer, yeah.
Yeah. And the eyes were like set a little bit higher, but not traditional almond-shaped eyes. They were just different. They weren't long this way. They were just an almond shape, but they weren't
They're taller, like facing upwards.
Yeah, they weren't like that right there. They were smaller eyes with not that angular shape on them at the end like this. They were more rounded that way, but still had a little shape to them, but it was just different. But I wasn't worried about him. I was worried about the little one. It's just like I was told to look at that one. I was told to look at that, look at that, look at that, look at that.
You were told to?
That's what I feel. I don't remember any words. I remember do not fear, do not fear. But I kept looking at that. And I pull up behind a car today in my vehicle or something, or on my motorcycle, and I just have to be real careful not to look at a light for too long, because that memory comes back to me all the time. That image comes back to me daily.
I noticed yesterday at the restaurant, it had happened. Like there was a jug of
it was a stainless steel jug. It was it was like polished chrome.
Yeah, and you had to get up mid conversation to just turn the jug.
Yeah, it was reflecting, and it was right inside of my eye. And I can't sleep with anything like these little lights. I can't. That has to. I put tape over them.
It's a trigger.
Yeah, anything like that.
Wow.
Anything. And it's just so strange, the whole thing. Who would have ever thought growing up, from a youngster to a man, that you'd see something like that in your lifetime and just have to just deal with it.
I couldn't think of a better person to hold this, because it takes someone strong, Mario. It does take someone really strong to be able to live with this and to talk about it. But you're also someone, like I said, you've got such a sharp recall. You are on a program that tested you regularly for your mental faculties. You are like, there is, in my opinion, no better person.
Thank you. Wow.
Than to speak about this than you. I firmly believe that. There are a lot of people out there that are really credible, that have their stories, but I think you provide something that no one else has provided so far, and it's the level of conscious detail plus the sort of credible background that comes with it. And for Congress to even ignore that,
well, they won't.
I mean,
they won't forever, but
I hope not. But for them to ignore it as long as they have, tells me, there's some part of that system that's acting out of bad faith.
Yeah, I called Tim Burkett's office and got some guy on the phone one day, and I told him, I said, look, I used to work at Y12. I said, NK25, and been to the lab plenty of times. And I said, Burkett had put out something about if there was something that you needed to tell him concerning this measure, to let him know. And I was going to let him know, because, I know where he lives there. I think Maryville's where he lives, and I lived over in Kingston, or lived in Harriman, actually. We did. And I called her twice. Never heard a word back from anybody over there. And that's okay, too. It really, you can't, they have to come to you. You can't go to them. It just seems that way. And I'll just let it ride until they do come in. And of course, that Lieutenant Colonel I spoke with at AARO, when he interviewed me, that was a really strange thing. Seemed like a real nice guy, and he was in the Army, I guess, Army intelligence. And he said something that he goes, well, he said, you're one of the only ones that you were actually on duty responding to an incident when this happened, to an alarm when this happened. So it's not a story, it's an incident. And I said, I never thought about that, but you're right. And I said, well, who else has done it? And he says, I can't think of any. So that's one thing they have to separate. It actually happened on duty. And for people that really want to know about this stuff, I just don't understand. One of my best buddies in the world is an F4 pilot. And we were at Moody Air Force Base together, and even shared a house downtown in Valdosta together for a while. And, you know, pilots are super great people, man. I'd do anything for pilot. And he got me in an F4 simulator all the time. And then I'd live my life in that simulator every time I
You could fly jet?
I damn sure try or crash trying. But with no G suit, you know, you can't get above 10,000 feet because you got to breathe. And, of course, I could never land the damn thing. So my thought was if I was in something, of course, that was an F4. That's not an F-16, F-15, 22, or the rest of them today. I have no idea about them, but I'd sure like to. But I always figured that if something happened and I could get to it, crank it up, with a ground power unit and it had fuel in it, at least I could take off and, of course, just punch out to get out of a combat area. That's, because I guess when we left Vietnam, there were F-4s on the tarmac and they had to blow them up. And there was a lot of security policemen, actual Air Force security policemen that died defending the runway while pilots and civilians got off in aircraft, because when they overran the whole place, but there was some people that lost their lives there. I just thought I'd maybe have a chance if that were to happen ever. So you got to think about that survival
Plan B,
yeah. But I'd like to also say that people in Congress just need to have a little more open mind, and they really need to talk to people that have up close and personal experiences with this. This is not something that passed by me at 1,500 miles an hour or was off in the far distance in any way. And like I said, I love all my pilots. I love those guys, man. Navy, Air Force, Marines, I don't care. They're great guys, man. Teeth with bugs in it and hair on fire, and they're going full speed ahead, man. I like that. But what happened that night on November 5 was up close and absolute personal. And no matter whether they ever hear me or not, I live with that, and I know what I saw, I know what I smelled, and I know what I experienced. And there's another guy out there just like me, and it's up to them to find him. I told the FBI, I interviewed with the FBI here a few months back, about 7 or 8 hours with them on the phone. Even interviewed my sister down in Florida about our incident we saw in Port Arthur, Texas as kids. And my sister has seen 2 Tic Tacs in where she lives near Dade City, Florida. Yeah. And they even asked her about that. It was good for her. She it really made her feel good, But I would just honestly like to see them really investigate this. I don't know what military forces or personnel are blocking Congress, the people we elect and pay to find these answers for us, and the people that are in the military or all the services or the CIA or the NSA or the FBI, they have to be held accountable. Somebody's got to answer these questions. And it's a dadgum shame. A president only gets 4 years or a re-election for 4 more years. But yet, a lot of these senators and a lot of people, they stay in there for a lifetime. So what kind of power did they develop? How unfair is that to the rest of society? Because they believe they're entitled to what they're doing today, to keep secrets from all of us. And that's entirely wrong. We pay those people.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of this stuff is going to be grassroots. It's going to be from the ground up.
Yeah.
And it's going to come from the little guy. And I think that's the way it has to happen, because that's all we've got. At the end of the day, we can't trust them all.
No,
and we got to stick together and keep telling these stories. Just like you're doing today. I also one last thing I wanted to touch on before we go: the do not fear. Now, that not only resonates with every experiencer who's had close contact, because they also have heard that in one form or another, or sometimes like we are you, you are we, this type of, rhetoric. But also, if you look in, and I'm not a religious guy. I know you mentioned you had a Bible, and I'm okay with religion. I think.
Yeah, sure.
But in the Bible, they do mention this
365 times.
Do not fear.
Do not fear.
The angels, the seraphim.
Yes.
These visitations. The first thing they say.
Do not fear.
Do not fear.
Amen. Yep.
You already made that connection.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Do you think historically what people are referring to in the Bible are these beings?
I think it's very close. I totally believe in God. I believe in Jesus. I believe the Bible, and however we perceive that in each of us is the story that we'll take away from it. So what I can say shouldn't influence anybody else. It's got to be within each individual. And I'm sure at the end of my lifespan, when I'm gasping my last breath of air, I'm pretty certain I'll be calling on him. Whether a person believes or not, or they're involved in an accident or die naturally of natural causes, they still call on him.
Do you think they're demons?
No. There are such things.
Evil forces out there, yeah. But not these things.
No, not these things.
What would you say to people who dismiss them as demons? What would you tell them as someone who does believe in God and believe in the Bible? What would you say to these people? Because I think they need to hear it too.
I think there should be a separation. In my humble opinion, if you ever think that we are all that ever has been or ever will be, and all that vastness is right above our head and the continuation of thought forever, and we're all that's out here, you're just fooling yourself. Because we're made of star material. God put that together, in my opinion, and sent it to where it could be used, or placed us here in ways in which he wanted us to be. That's all I know to say. And you've got to be very careful in how you address that, because people are going to make opinions of it. But there's nobody I don't care for. And when people do good things happen. And I just think down deep, I think there's good in everybody, and they have to let it out, just have to live that for each other, I believe. But there are those that don't, unfortunately, but that's just my thought, and it's a very deep subject.
All right, Mario. Do you want to take a break? I have questions from the audience, just a few.
Sure.
Do you feel like you can get through them? Do you want to take a little break here?
No, I'm good, man. I'm all right.
All right, we'll go.
I hope I've done okay here.
Yeah, you're incredible. Stop. You're amazing. This has been one of the most amazing conversations I've ever had in doing this. So yeah, thank you. Yeah.
Thank you.
I'll be right back. I'm going to turn that camera on, and we're going to get to some audience questions.
Okay.
All right, we got some questions here from the audience.
Sure.
And they've always got good questions. And if you're a member here, one of the perks, as many of you know, is getting to have the potential or to ask our guest a question. And I usually choose 3. And we're going to see, maybe we'll answer a few of them here.
There are times when I've walked in rooms and the lights flicker. And then I was at my oral surgeon's office, and they were doing the scan, of my mouth. And that piece of equipment is really high dollar. And once they scanned it, it wouldn't play it back.
Well, when you called me earlier,
mm-hmm.
right before you called, and I mean 3 seconds before
mm-hmm.
you called, the lights flickered in my office.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, it's probably windy. It's probably like a thunderstorm. I go outside. It's a beautiful day. I go, okay. Interesting.
I'm going to tell you one more thing too, real quick. My son was with me this day about 8 months ago. Got out of my truck. He was visiting. Got out of my little Honda Ridgeline is what I drive. Pulled up in the driveway, got out, and I have over an acre where I live. And there's azalea bushes and all this stuff all around my house, you know. Anyway, I was walking toward the garage, not a breath of air in the blowing or nothing. And all of a sudden, this freaking azalea bush man just started doing this shit. And he goes, Dad, what? That's another thing when you talk about 2017, December 17th, 2017. That's something that happened, you know, in my room. I don't know what it was for or what happened, but that's when I woke up standing at the foot of my bed.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm. That we need to talk about that, but all the low voltage, you know what a low voltage alarm is? Like on your microwave, your stove, your refrigerator, all these items, your AC units have them. And all these low voltage alarms in my home was going off, and it was 4:11 a.m. And my son burst through my room, through my door in my room, because he's just a room over. And he said, Dad, what's going on? As soon as he said that, I opened my eyes, and I'm standing at the foot of my bed looking at the north wall in my house. And I said, what's all those alarms? He goes, Dad, I don't know. And all the lights are like real low, like they were down on. I lost a leg of power to my house, so everything was up. I don't know what that voltage is, but everything was reduced, and the lights were just barely on. And what was on, like above the stove and that kind of small lights, were just flickering, like they were just turned way down. And nothing's on any kind of a dimmer control or nothing. And so I went through the house, and after these low voltage alarms sound on this equipment, on your washer, dryer, and all that stuff for a while, then they finally turn off, I guess. I don't know, because the power never came back on. But I told him, I don't know what happened, son. I said, I guess I'll call Georgia Power when I wake up. So and all of a sudden, it was about 7:45 in the morning. He opened my door, and he says, Dad, he goes, Georgia Power's out here. And I said, really? I said, I didn't call them. He goes, He goes, well, they're out there in the yard. There's a bunch of them. I said, no kidding. And I live off the road by like 150 feet. So I got dressed real quick, and I was off that day. So I walked out there, and I said, hey, how you doing, man? And he was between some pine trees in my yard. They were in about 40 feet, trying to find where the break was in that line, you know. I had no idea what he was even looking for. And he goes, you Mr. Woods? And I said, yes, sir. He goes, well, I tied in a jumper transformer. It's on your back deck by your trash can. And I said, what? I said, what happened? He goes, I don't know what happened. He said, but you lit up our board downtown like the 4th of July this morning at 4:11 a.m. And I said, well, what about the rest of the neighborhood? Are they out of power? I said, because all my stuff is like, it's working right now, but it was working because he put that jumper and it wasn't working up to that point. And my wife was asleep. She had no idea any of this had even taken place, you know. December 17th, 2017 is when it happened. And so anyway, he got to ask me questions, and I said, he goes, were you running any kind of equipment or something, high voltage equipment, a welder or something? And I said, I don't even own a welder, man. I own everything else, but no, I don't have anything like that. And he goes, anything on the 220 level? And I said, no, sir. I said, my well is, you know, I have a well. I said, I have a dryer and all that stuff. That all pulls 220. And he goes, well, I don't know either. He said, I just know yours is the only house that's affected. And it blew my computer up, my doorbell system.
Whoa.
Yeah, a microwave oven. I had 2 of them, and only one of them went. Something else in my garage.
Well,
it may have been something, but
I might explain the split flap not working here behind me.
Oh man,
it's not working. This isn't. I gotta probably reboot it or whatever, so we can't get to the question.
This whole thing, December 17th, 2017, I called Robert Hastings right away when I found all this out. And after my son burst through my room and I had this hole in the wall with sparks on the end of it, it looked like some kind of an opening or something. I couldn't explain it, and I don't really know what I saw. And I was standing at the edge of my bed.
Like a portal.
Like a portal, yeah. And,
was it like in like you, because you described to me like in the Marvel movies?
Yeah, just like that one. Thanos raised the fist and shot back through this dadgum portal. Looked just like that. I mean, I even thought that when I said that. And I don't have full recollection of seeing that. I just know, vision's a funny thing. You know that in magic. But so after I meet the supervisor in my yard, and he's telling me he's put this jumper transformer, which I have pictures of on my back deck out beside my garage, and I had not even seen it yet. I walked back there with him to look at it, and he showed me, he said, I'll come get it as soon as they put a new line down. So a couple of weeks, everything was done and taken care of, and I did have some things that were toasted and I had to get rid of and buy new again. But a couple of weeks later, one of the neighbors, teenagers, well, my son and he used to play around together when they were kids, shooting bows and arrows and BB guns and stuff. And he came by and he said, hey, Mr. Woods, he says, what was all those lights in your backyard the other night? And I said, what? I didn't know what he's talking about. I said, what are you talking about? And he goes, they look like Hollywood searchlights in your backyard at 4 o'clock in the morning. And I said, you got to be kidding me. I said, I've just got 6 lights back there on the corners of the house, right? Regular 150-watt spotlights, right? And he goes, I don't know what they were. He said, but they were super huge and bright. He said, I was on my way to work. And he just drove off. And that was the end of that. And I just shook my head thinking, what in the heck, man, is all that? Is that, I don't know. It just blew my mind. And one other thing I want to go back to real quick is right after my sighting and experience on November 5, it wasn't long at all when Close Encounters of the Third Kind came out.
Oh, wow.
I think it came out in, December, didn't it? Of 77.
Of 77. Yep.
I'm November.
Wow.
Of 77.
Wow. Oh, I didn't even make that connection.
Mm-hmm. So I took my wife to go see it. And there was a lot of things in there that I saw that I was picking up on. And anyway, where Roy Neary comes upon when he's out with that map in his pickup truck and he's got the flashlight in his mouth and all of a sudden the mailboxes start shaking. Of course, that's Hollywood excitement, drama. But when that craft came upon him and put that light on him, it seemed like it did something to him. It seemed as if it got his attention and almost shocked him in a way that through that light, something was imparted, a knowledge or a feeling or something that he had to go after, and it was pyramidal in shape, or that shape of the Devil's Tower at that time. When that happened to him, when that mailbox started shaking and that light came down on that man, I didn't see the end of that sequence because I jumped up out of that theater in Rapid City on Main Street and I hauled my butt out to the curb where I just had to gather myself, and I left my wife sitting there. And when she came out there to me, I just said, I feel like they're telling my life story there. That's what I told her. I said, I feel like they're telling my life story in that movie, and I can't watch that right now.
It was a month after.
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
Him floating in the car with the object sort of like lifting in the car right when that light.
Same thing. So tell me Steven Spielberg doesn't have some type of inside information, because I thoroughly believe he does. Absolutely believe he does.
You going to go see the new one?
Absolutely.
The Disclosure Day?
I'll buy it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll buy it.
I'll go see it with you if we're in the same part of the world.
I'd love it, man. I would absolutely love that. That would be fantastic. But I just had to get that in there because it's that's important. Because I felt that very same way that he looked, and looking upon myself, it's given me introspect. I even think about that craft over November 5 and November 5, not just the size, but the proximity, or not proximity, the closeness of that. They could have gone to 9 other sites, all twice to 3 times as far as November 5 was. How did they know that launch control facility was even even somehow monitored by that missile at that missile site? How would they know that? How could they know that we would respond to an alarm there? And I mean, do they sit up there and they can just see all this? Do they see the connections underground? Well, I mean, what's their visual aspect of me flipping those sight lights at them and from where they're located, in which, by the way, all said and done, when I plotted it on Google Earth, November control, or November 1, November 5, to Newell Lake Reservoir Dam, it's a Pythagorean triangle. And I actually believe they were over Newell Lake Reservoir Dam when I first saw them. That's where I think that craft was, over that.
Where they dropped you?
Over that dam's where I think they were initially, and then I ended up back there. I'm just, that's total speculation. Yeah. But there's something that doesn't make sense as to where they were when I saw them, to what occurred at November 5, to where I ended up at the back of Newell Lake Reservoir Dam with Michael Johnson. So I just wanted to say that. But drawing it looking at it on a U.S. map, I mean, that is a really strange angle, how that, and it all encompasses about 23 and a half miles, because it's 7.5 miles to November 5 from November 1, and then it was 9.5 miles to Newell Lake Reservoir Dam up Highway 79. So I just wanted to bring that up.
Yeah, it's an interesting point of connection.
I try to look at all these different aspects of it.
Another interesting synchronicity is that November 5 is the same day that Travis Walton got taken.
November 5th, really?
Yeah, in 1975, so 2 years prior. So that November 5 is really interesting. And I do believe November 5 is also when Bob Lazar went to George Knapp.
On November the 5th?
Yeah, in 89.
Wow.
So just other synchronicities there.
Yeah. Anyway, the whole thing is just as unreal. Just the whole 48 years of it, literally.
Well, I'm glad that you're here to tell the story.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Well, I would love to get to some of these, but this thing's behaving wonky. Is it related? I mean, your guess is as good as mine. I will ask one of the questions here just because, you guys.
Sure.
And Slug, your question here was, what do you want other military witnesses who are still silent to know?
I would help them in any way possible. They could email me. Anything they'd like to say would never be divulged or sent out to anybody else, ever. If you just need someone to talk to about it, I'd be more than happy to listen to you, or you can email me at mwoods175@gmail.com, and I'll be happy to answer you. It may take me a little while to get to it. It usually does after some type of a cast. Mm-hmm. I always put my email out there for people, but I would be happy to help you in any way, fashion, or form. And if you don't feel like reaching out, just sit down and take a full collection of yourself. Take some deep breaths and just know that you're not alone. And that if you do reach out, somebody will help you, and not everybody will talk about you, and nobody will ever make you feel bad. If you need to reach out for any reason, there are good people in this field that can help you, and you may know some other than myself or Chris or anybody else. Just don't lock yourself up. Don't take it out on your family. And level with your wives. Don't hide that. Don't ever hide it, because it comes out in other ways, and you have no control. Inevitably, it's an emotion that we just don't have. We just can't keep in check yet. So serve yourself well. Just know people care, and if you want to reach out, reach out.
I appreciate that, and you're about to have a full-time job answering emails, I suspect, after this podcast. Mario Woods, I want to thank you so much for, your candor, just opening up, being so open is really, really much needed, and it takes a lot of bravery, a lot of courage, a lot of the X factor that you seem to have. So I'm very, very thankful that you came forward with this, and I wish you nothing but the best in Egypt, and I can't wait to hear about your adventures.
Man.
And if there's anything at all that you need from me, you just let me know.
You know I will, and I really appreciate that, Chris. You're awesome, brother. Awesome.